Welcome to today's episode of the Gavel Drops. And today we've got Keith Firmin, who some people say, and I'd probably agree with them, is the direct to vendor king. That's a crown you can wear gracefully, can you, Keith?
I would never, ever put myself on that pedestal. I'm obsessed by it. I would say I'm obsessive. I would never rank myself as a king, but I definitely love it. And I definitely think about it more than I think about most other things in life. It's very kind of you, though.
My pleasure. So we'll go straight off into origins and early moves. So you've been doing direct to vendor for 11 years. What sparked you to go solo after your previous career?
So we've been buying properties for a fair amount of time, and I could just see that buying properties on market and via sourcing agents was getting harder and harder. And it got to a point where I thought there's got to be another way of doing this. And direct to vendor was always in the back of my mind, but I always had my own hang-ups about it, about how it'd be perceived, how my family might feel about it. And I made it too kind of emotional and personal. And when I then kind of flipped it on its head and thought, it's not me trying to gain something only, like I can help people. Because there are people, and you'll know this for yourself, there are people who don't want to put their house on the market. There are people that don't have the confidence to find another route. There are people that don't want to put in the effort to find another route. And actually being contacted directly is convenient for them. The timing might be right. And actually it solves their problem. Maybe I can buy something where they never have to market, never have to have endless viewings, never have to have the neighbours know what the house looks like, and then it can solve the problem for them. And so that's why I really dived into direct to vendor. And it, let's be real, with the skill set that I had from the police of being able to find stuff when you're driving around or walking around, I knew that I had a skill set that was transferable. And so I lent into it very heavily, and then direct to vendor became my life.
So from chasing criminals to chasing empty properties.
Pretty much, yeah. There's a lot of similarities, unusually, but there is a lot of similarities. But it also braced me for kind of how it can be in terms of the types of houses you go into that aren't going to be as pristine as on the market, or the types of vendor situations that aren't going to be the ones that are on the market. There's a lot more to it than just finding a house. And you know as much as I do, a lot of it's a human game. Like, how can you speak to somebody? How can you understand where they're at? And then how can you try and solve their problem with compassion and privacy?
I think it's one of the many takeaways from it is you're there to solve a problem. And I think that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, and honestly, I ignored that for a long time. I think I'd been too conditioned by the market, and you're dealing with an agent who is only about business, and you never have to speak to an owner. So you've almost got that translator there. You can say what you want to an agent, they will then put it through their own filter and then relay that message at the end, and then you live with the consequences. And I think I'd almost ignored the fact that there is a human at the end of it who wants that human interaction, who wants to have something satiated for them, whether it's they want to know that the information is held private, or they want a bit of understanding about their personal situation or a time frame. And when it's off market, when it's direct to vendor, it's only that. It's knowing what options you've got available to you. How can I solve somebody's problem? But it's also taking the time to listen to them, because they will tell you what they want. In the course of their conversation, however they're phrasing it, they will tell you what they need and what they value. And that just comes from listening. And again, I ignored that for a while at the beginning. And it's only more recently that I've become more accustomed to it. Again, I'm like, oh, things move much more smoothly when you work with somebody rather than just going in going, oh, by the way, I offer this. That doesn't help anybody, nobody at all.
Yeah. I think it's having the perception, well, thinking about your clients, isn't it? Because technically, on a direct to vendor, that seller is like your client.
100%. You've got to look after them. And at any stage, they can think, oh, you know what, I don't want to work. I had somebody 2 weeks ago who contacted me, said, I've had an offer and it was better than my offer, but I'm not going to go with them because of the way they spoke to me, which tells me everything. Like they want to be able to trust the person they're working with. And again, you've got so many years in this business, more than I've got in this business, and you've built up really good relationships as a result of everything that you've done, where people still come to you years after you started, and there's been that continual relationship. I know that I might only ever get one transaction with one person, but I'm also aware they might speak to a friend and say, have you thought about selling it privately? And I always believe the bare minimum of what I want from any conversation is for them to go away and know that they can always contact me should they need to, and rely on what I'm going to say. That's all I want. I want that continual relationship throughout the whole thing. Even if it doesn't result in a transaction now, I want to know that they know that I exist and that they can always come back to me. And it's worked. Like, people come back to me 4 years after the fact. You messaged me on this date, you sent me a letter. I now want to sell. I want to pick up that conversation. Why have they contacted me? It's because I've said something to them, or I've come across in a certain way, which is authentic to me, and that resonates for them. Again, you've done the same thing, right? Like, you've done this day in, day out. You know You know exactly what I do. We think the same about this stuff. You and I have had so many conversations about the way that we view stuff, and it's the same. It's building that relationship, it's knowing the person, and then it's about, okay, what can I do for you that's going to help you with this property? It's not always solvable. You and I both know that, but it's knowing that you can present opportunities to a seller that on market doesn't give them.
100%. I think it's how they feel. It's how you leave them feeling. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of prime example. I remember it was a Facebook lead when I had WRB auctions. Old lady with a daughter living in a big house in Oxton. The dad had turned it into like flats, but they weren't landlords. Do you know what I mean? They didn't want to be landlords, and the people who were in there knew they didn't want to be landlords. Who were like not paying. And I remember this was before COVID, and then COVID hit. We kept in touch over COVID, and then when they come to put it on the market, sold it. I'd sold another house in an auction previously, and I said, "Well, you'll need a rental. I've just sold one to this landlord. Would you rent that?" And they were like, "Yeah, that'd be brilliant." Told the investor who bought it, "Listen, they're ex-landlords anyway, so you know it's going to be a good rental for you." And I think they stayed in that rental for a year, maybe a bit longer, to the point where I got another auction property around the corner from them. Who'd you ring first? I've just listed one round the corner, exactly the same house that you're living in, but you can now buy. And they went on to buy that as an auction property. So they sold at auction, they got a rental, and then they bought at auction. Now they're not just clients, they're friends, as you would say.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's that relationship that you build. And I think one-sided, as you say, of looking at one deal, it could be multiple deals.
Completely. And again, I kind of go back to, and your example is perfect for it. It is about, as you said, it's about how you make them feel. And I just consistently believe being who you are is the thing that matters. And it's not going to relate to everybody. Like there'll be people, you and I can offer the same thing, right? But they will relate to either you or me. And then they'll go to that person. So it's not about competing with other people in that respect. It's just about competing with yourself as to how can I put myself across in the most authentic way to me, and then kind of living with it. And I know that I'm a good person. I mean, that's me too at my own horn. I feel like I'm a good person. And I can evidence stuff on my phone where people have consistently got back to me. I've got, like you say, it's almost like a friendship with somebody who wants to sell their house. And I've tried desperately to find a solution for them to help them out as quickly as possible, but they're just not in that spot right now. But it does feel like a bit of a friendship. Like I check in on them, I make sure they're all right, ask them if they need anything. For me, that stuff matters because it's just being human. If a lot of the people who are selling privately have a bigger need than those people that can wait on the market for months and months and months and have loads of viewings and then be ghosted. They've got an urgency around it. They've got privacy around it. They've got different needs. And a lot of those people need something that other people don't need. And that might be constant touch points. It might be, can you complete quickly, or can you extend that completion because I need to clear the house first? I need to get in a position where I can be there and emotionally deal with it. Like it's just having that flexibility and seeing like everything is a game when it's direct to vendor. It's not just one dimensional where an agent's going to tell you which way you've got to go. You literally get to have open plan for everything. It's an open world in gaming terms. You can go anywhere, do anything, and find a solution that other people don't think exists. I think it's honestly, I feel like it's a privilege to be able to do it. I really do. And I'm not hyping it up too much. I genuinely feel like it's a privilege to be able to be invited into people's homes and try and find a solution for them that works for them, not just give them an offer through an agent, which is quite cold.
Do you think as well it's regarding the honesty that you give them on what you can buy it for or what you can offer, rather than, because I know a lot of we won't name the companies, but I know a lot of
Name
direct
them,
to
name
vendor.
them, name them, name them. No,
Do you know what I
I'm
mean?
kidding.
The big, the bigger companies. We've all heard the horror stories of people who are calling themselves cash buyers and stuff like that and stuff. But do you feel that if you were honest with the seller and said, "Listen, this is what I can offer," and at that time they go no, but they know now they've built a rapport up with you, so they know you're not basically bullshitting them, and you are going to give them what you say you're going to give. Is it the key to direct to vendor of just being honest of why you can give them what you want, what they want, or
100%.
the offer, and then that's it?
100% true. Again, it comes back to the human thing, doesn't it? And it's the same. It's like a magnet; it just draws you in every time. It's the human point. We bought a couple where um, somebody's passed away, somebody's inherited it. They've had higher offers, and they've come to us to sell it because of a relationship we've built up, how we've come across, and because we've been upfront from the beginning. One in particular, in St Helens, one of their parents had passed away. It was the last person that was there, passed away. The house was like over 100 years old, I think it was. The neighbour had offered on it. So there's that closeness in terms of relationship. The seller may have known the neighbour. A builder had offered, and we knew what it'd been valued at as well. So we had 3 different prices in our mind that we needed to try and achieve. And we spoke around, we're like, we can't match that. Here's what we can offer you. And we understand if you need to go elsewhere. And they came to us because I think that was based on relationship, but we were really upfront. We didn't go, oh no, we'll match that and then try and chip them at the last minute. I think that is the worst tactic in the world. It's preying on somebody to just be so exhausted by the process that they go, oh, you know what, Keith, I'll go with you. I've got no interest in that. I say to people up front, like, here's how I operate. It doesn't work for everybody, but here's why it works for some people. And here are those situations. I will not take you to the last day and then pull that offer. My offer is my offer. I'm not interested in going back and forth playing negotiation tennis. I'll tell you my offer and we can just know. I believe people just need the information, then they can make their own decision. And so absolutely, honesty up front is so important for me. I know it is for you. And I feel like that's the only way of doing it. Like, it blows my mind that people view that there's another way of doing it. Like, to try and get an edge somewhere just to get a deal agreed through lying. It doesn't work for me whatsoever. I think it's a loser's game, truthfully.
Yeah, because you've got to just be transparent in what the offer was and what the offer. And I think as well, when I used to do it direct to vendor, it was being brutally honest and saying, listen, this is what we can offer, but this are the reasons why. You may get someone to pay more, but that's why our refurb cost is X. We need X. That's why we're at that figure. Now, it doesn't work for everyone, but at least you've given them the opportunity and the option of the two.
Completely. I used to try and maintain a relationship by not telling them everything, like, here's the kind of profit I need to make, or not disagreeing with them when I felt like they'd misquoted themselves on what level of work needed doing or what a comparable property would be in terms of end value. I used to try and maintain that relationship by not stepping on those toes almost. And that got me absolutely nowhere because it's not helping anybody. People need honesty. We all need honesty, even if it's not the greatest news in the world. You just need to know. I said to you just before we jumped on here, I spoke to a vendor and told them, listen, what your house was marketed for and what we both thought it was probably worth is not accurate based on what a survey says. It's worth £200,000 less than you've got it marketed for, and it's worth £50,000 less than what I thought over the phone without ever viewing it was worth. That's not a great conversation to have, but I believe that is the only thing right to do. It's not about then going, oh, you know what, I'll stick with my offer and then chip you last minute. It's just, people just need to know the information so they can make their decision. And if they think highly of me, or they think of me or you in a good light as a result of being honest up front, then it works in our favor, I guess. But that's by no means of the imagination is that why I do it. I do it because I feel like it's the right thing to do, is just be up front. And then you do find commonality with people like myself and yourself. We chat, right? Because we view things similarly. We've got similar morals, values. We understand things in a similar way. And then you make connections like that. So then the number of deals that I might miss out on by being maybe too upfront and too honest too early with things, I know that you and I might be able to find some deals together where actually you send me a lead, I can get it done, and then we split it that way. Like, it always comes around. It always comes around. I never think that there is a scarcity of opportunity out there. There's so much with direct to vendor. You cannot ever say there is not enough with direct to vendor. It's just a table full of deals out there to be had.
Commitment to it, because people say it doesn't work, but I think the people who say it doesn't work are the people who send 20 letters out and don't get a response and say, nah, this direct to vendor letter stuff, it just doesn't work. I had a recruit who was potentially going to be an auction expert, and the question he asked us on like the discovery call was, how many letters do I need to send out in order to get a deal? And my response was, if I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't be speaking to you. I'd be on a yacht sipping pina coladas, enjoying life, because it's like, how long is a piece of string? I said, but it's not. It's about the game. You're missing the point. The point of starting at A and getting to the end, whatever the end is in direct to vendor, but enjoying the process and having these type of stories that you can tell of how you got contact with that person or how you got contact with that person is the key.
You and I absolutely see it the same way. It's ridiculous. As you're saying it, I'm literally, the hairs up on my arms, the way you're describing it. That's exactly what I buzz for. And I've questioned myself so often, like, am I more committed to the process and the stories than I am an end result? And that's not true. Like, I've reflected on it so often, but you have to love what you're doing to have the kind of I don't know, delusion that you and I might have, like in terms of, I can make this work, this will work. And I've been asked the same as you. And I get why people ask the question, because they're trying to understand, is it worth my level of effort? I had the same question. I was giving a talk somewhere and I was asked from the back of the room, how much do you have to send out? What's the cost of sending it out versus just doing it on market? And I was like, well, you tell me, how many viewings do you have to do on market in order to get one agreed? Like, how many letters would I have to send out comparatively, and what would be the cost of that? And what would be the quality of the deal that I get versus the quality of the deal that you get? And I think there's a real conversation there around people are looking for what is easiest. And I almost feel like some people want direct to vendor to fail so they can go, I knew it was shit, I'm going to go back on market. And that's fine. Like, I'm not here to convince anybody of doing it. I'm absolutely not. I may have direct to vendor training out. That does not mean I'm here to convince people. I've said for the longest, add it into what you already do. But to your point, it is about the commitment of it. Absolutely, it's the commitment. Because there's so many variables, right? If you send out a letter, what's the quality of your letter? What's the quality of the house? What's the situation of the house? When's that letter received? Like, in the time of the year, in the time of cycle of the person who owns the house, of their life, like what are they going through at the moment? How many times you send that letter? How many times you followed up on it? But like, there's so many variables with it. It is impossible to say from a single letter what the response rate to that would be. There are ways of improving it. Absolutely, there are ways of improving it. But it's really difficult to quantify. And that's what people struggle with, because they don't want to go into the unknown of doing it. But for yourself and myself, we do Facebook ads as well, right? We can kind of quantify what's the click-through rate or what's the cost per lead, but it doesn't mean that's a conversion. And then what's the quality of the deal for that conversion versus something from a letter versus something on market? It's such an open conversation to be had. But I think with a lot of people, they want it to work quickly. And when it doesn't, I sent out 20 letters and I haven't got a response. Okay, well, there's probably some work to be done there, isn't there, around where you're sending it, what you're saying. Let's have a look at it. But people don't want to hear that. I think people just want an instant response. I've put in a bit of work. I deserve a response. And in direct to vendor, you and I both know there is no deserved. It's just, you have to know that you're making progress all the time. And you have to be enthused by the thought of, how else can I get access to this? And that's the cool. And you can do it on market as well, right? How much stuff is on market and has been on market for 500 days plus with no activity? Maybe there's something to be done there. Maybe there's a conversation with a vendor to be had. And let's be real on this as well. And you and I both know this. Off market and direct to vendor are two different things. Off market is any house that's not on the market in any form. But direct to vendor can be something that's on the market. You might just be direct to vendor. I've got a lot of vendors that are on the market at the moment that are very unhappy contacting me. That's still direct to vendor. And I think a lot of people think that they're the same thing. And to be off market, you have to be direct to vendor. But I'm just looking at direct to vendor as a whole. How can I speak to somebody that's not currently on the market, or sorry, who's not selling it actively through the market in terms of they've got a sale agreed? How can I speak to them? That's what I'm looking for. How can I speak to a vendor about their house, regardless of the situation? But it's consistency. Completely right. Same for everything, though.
I think it is, and I think a lot of people look at it's like, if you can explain it in a simple terms of, if someone wants to lose weight and they go to the gym on a Monday, the first ever time they go to the gym, and they come home after going to the gym and go, well, that shit didn't work. I've not lost no weight. But you've been to the gym once.
You've
Do you
seen
know
my
what I mean?
workout routine, haven't you?
But that's the thing, isn't it? And that's, I think, people's perceptions of it doesn't work is because they're not committed. So what I used to just set out a game plan for the year of how many letters I was going to commit to every month, and just commit to them and track every lead that come in. And then at the 6-month period or the quarters, go, well, I've sent that many, I've got this and I've got that, and work it out. Because I think if you're going, well, I've sent 10 letters out, or 20 or 50, whatever the letters it is, and I've got no response this week, and tracking it that way, you'll just get disheartened by the process.
Yeah.
Whereas
You're
if
too
you
close
look at,
into it. You need to zoom out.
yeah,
Really.
look at it as a, well, I'm going to commit. So you and Kim jumped into investing when others were pulling out. How did that pivot feel?
Honestly, I didn't really think much about it. And I don't think much about when we've acted when others haven't. Like, now is a difficult time for people, right? The market stagnated a little bit over the last couple of years. Prices had kind of gone down a little bit. And I know for a fact from a number of conversations I've had, people pulled out. Same as like 2011, people were unsure. I've never really looked at what most people are doing. And maybe that's to my own detriment, but I feel like you focus on your own stuff, focus on your own thing. Don't worry about anybody else. And just, I don't know. For me, it's about, can I continually improve with the thing that I'm doing? And so whether I'm buying 15 deals a year or 5 deals a year or 1 deal a year, is it better than I was doing? And what about the external circumstances? And that's kind of how I grade it and judge it. I don't look at, it's the market, people leaving the market. because there's always opportunities, isn't there? Like you own an auction company, like people wanting to sell benefits you. So people leaving the market benefits you because there's going to be more stock available for you. But equally, you're going to need to know there's buyers there for you. So when a landlord wants to sell up, and again, there's landlords I'm speaking to at the moment who just want to get out for varying reasons, including the new legislation that's coming in, that's harsh on them. And yes, it has an impact on us, but there's benefit for us as well. Like, can we find a way that it works for us, or we can carry on buying? It's my sole aim is to carry on buying, and it's what everybody else does doesn't really matter to me that much. Have you ever found that, or how have you kind
I
of ridden
think
the wave over time?
the way I see it, there's always going to be a buyer for the property if it's priced right. It doesn't matter which market you're in. And like people always ask you what's the main things about selling right, even auction stock or estate agent. When estate agents, if your market's price is right, it will sell in any market. If your market poor and your price is right, there's a good chance it's still going to sell. If your marketing's great but the price is wrong, it's never going to sell. And it's always that perception of people always go, oh, yeah, but I don't know about this, or I don't know about that. Or I had an investor say to me once, yeah, but what happens if I buy this today, Ray, and the market crashes? And I said, okay, what's the end goal? Well, it's for me pension. So how old are you? I'm 45. When do you want to retire? 70. So does it really matter what happens until you're ready to sell? Yes. Okay, you buy this, the market crashes, you are financially not where you was meant to be. But if you're not going to sell it for another 20 years, it doesn't make a difference of what the market does next year, the year after, the year after that, the year after that. It's like people when they lock in their interest rates on the mortgage, I'm only locking it in for 2 years or a year, because what if the market, the rates drop? Yeah, but what if they go up? But it doesn't, just leave it. Just, just lock it in and let's crack on, rather than worry about, you kind of, and that's what I said to him, you're worrying about what's going to happen next year on an investment that you're going to have for 20 years. Focus on just getting the investment right and then just seeing what happens in 20 years' time.
Completely. And that, again, that to go back to something you said a second ago about how close people in are to what they're looking at, and people just need to zoom out a little bit. But it's having that confidence as well, isn't it? It's having the confidence that everything will be all right. And I think in property, too often people look at the now and not thinking, but what's come before and what's coming after, which I know the only thing that actually exists is the present. I get that. But from a perspective standpoint, to understand what you've come from to be where you're at now, and then think, well, what will it look like in the future, should give confidence somewhere, right? Because you can see that prices have always gone up. All right, there's going to be little dips, but it's going to go up over time. And if the price doesn't go up, the rent's going to go up. It's just always going to serve you to buy. And all right, you might not make the 4 million that you want now, but if you stick it out, same as in trading, like as a trader, I'm not a trader. I'm not a stocks trader. I'm not involved in any of that. But I honestly feel like if I was, I would just be in it for the long term. I wouldn't be interested in sitting on my laptop trying to dump and run, dump and run, dump and run. I would only be interested in the longevity of something, because I know over time things will pay off if you judged it right at the beginning, surely.
Yeah, it's committing, isn't it? And I think a lot of the time, because I remember being when I was an estate agent and he was speaking to investors, and even auctions now, there's two different types of investors, isn't it? There's investors who want to be in property for the quick cash to spend, or there's people who want to be in property for the end goal. And I remember speaking to an investor, I think he had about, probably at the time, he had about 100. So he had a big portfolio, but his portfolio was good stock. And as he said, I don't touch them, don't touch the money. Each property's rental is the property's rental. I'll leave it in. It's not my, I don't think of it as my money. I think of it as the property's money. Now, if the property can pay me, perfect. But if it can't, it stays in the pot until I've built up enough nest egg in order. If anything goes wrong, the property pays for itself. And then you'll find at the end of the deal, when I come to sell, I've got good equity, but the property's also got its own money.
Yeah.
But then there's the flip side on the other property investors who will take out a deal, start spending the money. The property doesn't have any money. The boiler goes, it's £1,000. You've got to find £1,000. So then that's the side of property. Oh, this property thing's not working. It's like, no, it does work, but you've bought a Range Rover Sport on lease that's costing you 900 quid.
Yeah.
Because you're now a property investor. It's the balance of the two.
I think people think property is a really, I think people used to think it was quick money. I think people think it's big money now, but ignore the fact that it's a job and it can be a bit of a graft and it is a long play, which is where I think direct to vendor helps out quite a lot, right? Because because it is a lot of, you can negotiate a bit further, and there's little avenues where actually you can structure it in your way where it still benefits everybody. And that's where the margins then start to creep in, right? If you're buying something on market, like on the market at the moment, predominantly people would be buying 15% ROI if they're going to be doing a renovation, renting it out, and then refinancing it. About 15% ROI. But off market, those percentages go up. So all of a sudden, it's a much more attractive deal. It just takes more time to get into. Can you wait that time? Is the deal you would have got on market, would that have gone up in enough value and rent in order to kind of counteract the time you would spend to get the direct to vendor deal? Maybe, but I don't think so. But again, this comes back to how much effort do you put in, how consistent are you with it? I know this is slightly off track, but to cover something you said earlier about people who send out some letters, not really do anything with them. I think that is because they don't have the systems in place. You quite rightly said, I'd send out X number of letters and I would follow them all up, and I would have it, and I would know where they're at, what I've got to do with them, and then I know how many more I've got to send out. I think most people don't have those systems in place. So if they sent out 1,000 letters, let's say, that, let's just say 50%, which is unrealistic, 50% came back to them, they can't deal with 500 leads. No chance, because they don't have any system set up. So it's easier to then send out a small sample size because they don't have to then worry about dealing with so many leads. But then when you send out a small sample size, you're not going to get the same returns, and you're making a rod for your own back, and then it doesn't work. And then you just give up and you look on market and you buy 5% ROI deals and think property doesn't work. Wonderful. What an excellent story that is. It does work. It's just, it takes resilience.
Have you ever bought off an estate agent?
Yeah. Plenty back in the day, not recently, not for the last 6 years.
Not for the last 6 years.
No. I bought through a sourcing agent actually, and that was on market. So yeah, I take that back. Through a sourcing agent that was on market, but otherwise exclusively off market.
And has your off market like campaigns changed dramatically since you first started?
Yeah,
Or are they still the same but just tweaked?
That's a really interesting question. Process-wise, it's still roughly the same, right? And there's no secret to this. Find a house, see that it looks different, or how does it look different to everybody else's, or do you think it's empty? Make an inquiry, follow it up, get a view in, put in an offer, buy the house. In a dream world, that works. So that process still exists. But I've tweaked things that I do around the process, how to get contact with somebody, how to structure a letter, what I can offer them in terms of my offer. It used to just be, here's my cash offer. It's going to be low, enjoy that one, and that's not going to get anything agreed. But I've changed it dramatically in that respect. But the process is still largely the same. Did yours change over time, or did you keep it with what worked?
The process was the same. It's just I always look back at the market that I used to do years ago.
Mate, yeah.
And at the time, it was like, used to look at it and go. And that's why I always look back. Like all my leaf letters and stuff, a lot of my letters are still kept to look back and go, wow, I remember sending them out thinking, they're the bollocks, them letters. And then you look at them now and you go, they were horrendous.
No wonder nobody responded to me. It's awful. I tested for a long time how many words would have to be in a letter, or what would be the length of a letter, like a full A4 page or 3 paragraphs or 1 paragraph. And then obviously there's things you can do about what you put in the paragraphs and how you structure that and what would be the key points. I genuinely thought for a while, if I put a massive lengthy letter about myself, about my interest in property, what I've been doing, and my interest in their property, that would really resonate with people. Nothing, bro. What a waste of my life that was. But it did teach me not to do that particular thing. I've never done that again. I like the game, as you do, of getting somebody's attention almost, like what would get somebody's attention. We spoke about this a little while ago about you sent out a Facebook message and you said, I know that they'd seen it, so I know it was them because they didn't respond to me, which is a good one, right? Like if they see it but they don't respond to you, you know it's them, because if it wasn't them, they would respond saying you've got the wrong person. I love the different ways of getting in contact with people. How can you go about it? I sent out Valentine's cards to people, Christmas cards to people. I just want to get their attention. That's all it is. Maybe I'm quite needy. Maybe people that do direct to vendor are quite needy and just want all the attention. I'm not sure. Do you think you're needy?
I'd probably say when I was doing it, I think it was more I think I needed it to work. If it makes it, it's that game, isn't it? There's nothing better than like the biggest literally ever auction deal I'd done when I had WRB auctions was a direct to vendor lead.
Tell me about it.
Biggest one.
Tell me.
Crosby on the corner. If you ever Crosby in Liverpool, you're ever driving into Crosby from city centre Liverpool, as you're going into Crosby, there's a corner, used to be an accountant's, massive. So it was 2 semi-detached houses and he knocked it through into an accountancy. And when he couldn't get planning on it and it'd been empty for a while, I remember seeing it, pulling in and thinking, wow, this would be an absolute cork and auction lot to get. Direct to vendor sent them a letter, found them on company's house, sent them another letter to the company, got in touch with them, spoke to the seller, great seller. And I was just brutally honest. He'd had problems with the planning officers, couldn't get planning. And I was like, you're never going to get planning. And we put on the auction 770. And the guy who bought it got planning first off. 15, I think he got 15 apartments in it. But that was from a boarded, overgrown house from a director. But it wasn't one of them ones. I'd been to somewhere else and I was on my way back. So I'd done a viewing on something, or I'd done pictures or something, and I was coming back through Crosby to get home onto the Wirral. I remember seeing it. It's when I had it is, and I always say this to the team now, is don't jam pack your diary if you're doing direct to vendor, because you'll see stuff and haven't got the time to stop.
Yeah.
Whereas if you give your diary a bit of flexibility and you see something, you can always have that time to go. And that's when I had mine. I'd always have in between appointments and that half an hour, 45 minutes. So then if I'm driving somewhere and I see something, I go, oh, spot that, log it, and then come back to it on another day.
Mate, this is honestly, I could talk about this stuff all day long. All day long. We could literally exchange direct to vendor stories. You're so right. It is just keeping your eyes open, isn't it? That's all it is. And I wonder with the seller of that one whether it was a timing thing for them as well. Like maybe nobody had contacted them, and maybe they just thought, I've had enough of this. The right letter on the right day will resonate. And I joke about it fairly often, but doing direct to vendor letters is my lottery ticket. Not because it's going to make me 70 gazillion or whatever it would be in the Euro Millions, but because one of those will land on the right day for somebody. And the reason you send multiple over a period of time is because you don't know when somebody's going to go back to that property. But you best believe you want yours to be read before anybody else's, or you want yours to be read most consistently. I just believe it's about consistency, visibility, and just giving yourself a chance with it. And to your point, you and I did a viewing last week, right? And then before I went to a couple of other drive-bys to go make inquiries, I drove down a particular street and there was a very, very obviously empty house. And I spoke to both sets of neighbours. They're going to try and connect me with the owner of it. And that's all it took. That is all it took. An extra 10 minutes in my day to go and potentially generate our next best deal. I just think that's worth it. I can't see how that's not worth it. We're not so busy that we can't do that, are we?
I think with a lot of people I think with direct to vendor, they don't know where the process is going to end. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what people's perception is, yeah, but like, I get a lot now because obviously I love direct to vendor. I always have done. So like whenever I'm doing auction training or stuff like that, I always say you need to be the person that knows every empty property in your area as much as you can know. I could ring you and say, how many empty properties do you know of now in your location? Well, I know X and I've got them all on a list and I know exactly where they are. Do you know what I mean? And I'll admit I haven't done it for a good few years now, but I still know a fair few that have gone, yeah, they're still there.
And it's never going away, is it? Let's face it. Like it's an infinite pot, because even if you and I paired up for 5 years and said, let's just buy it and resolve every empty house, even if we did that, what are we then saying, that there are going to be no more vacant houses ever in the history of the UK? That's just not likely. People are still going to pass away. People are still going to have divorces. People are still going to have vacant tenanted lots. Like, these things will always come around. And it's not just the very, very obviously, like say, boarded up, overgrown house that's going to be the one that's empty. There are other ones with telltale signs. Like, it baffles me that people don't do more direct to vendor. It really does. But I guess the level that you and I have done it at, or do it at, it's a very niche thing. But there are different levels to it that people can get involved. That's the thing that confuses me. People want deals, but they aren't willing to do the thing that will potentially get them that deal. It doesn't work for me like that.
I think it's effort, isn't it?
You think people don't want to put in the effort?
Yeah. And I think a lot of, like, it's like if we had a room now and me and you were both on stage and there was a room of 100 people in the room and your pitch was, right, I'm Keith, direct to vendor king. I'll get you your first deal within a week. Come with me into the other room. And then I go, before you go, I'm Ray. I'm not a direct to vendor king, but I'll tell you how it's going to be. But I can't promise you get your first deal in a month. But I can promise you I can show you how to do it. But it's a hard graft. And you may stand in some dog shit and climb over fences. Stay in this room if you want to be with me. I guarantee majority are going to go, Ray's pitch is a bit shit. I'm going with Keith. And it's that.
Yeah.
And it's that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You may get the odd couple who'll go, I think Ray's being more truthful. I want to stay here. But I reckon 80% could go into your room to go, well, Keith's going to get me a deal in a month. And I think that's the thing, isn't it?
So I genuinely, as you're saying that, so I agree with you. Number one, I think it is about that. I think people will always choose the path of least resistance. I think by default humans are lazy, and I get that. I'm no different to that. But I also think I could get somebody a deal in a month from direct to vendor. It would require a phenomenal amount of effort and like trained effort. I believe you could as well, right? If literally somebody came up to you and said, "I will do whatever you want to get that deal in a month," I believe that could happen. I believe that can happen.
You can get.
Like it can.
If I think it's the same thing, isn't it? If people are committed to the process, it's that key. It's like do you know what I mean? The auction company, the auction experts. I say I can teach you to be an auction expert and get an auction stock property, but you've got to be committed to the process. You've got to go, well, actually, I'm going to give it 110% and get to the result that I want to get to. But it's the commitment, isn't it?
Fair.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, for years, to be fair, I used to go out and deliver my own leaflets, walk the streets and deliver my own leaflets, like a leafleter would do, like you'd pay someone to do.
Yeah.
The reason being is you find more about the area on the ground than you would do. But also, you learn leafleting. And people go, well, what's to do with leafleting? Because bear in mind, if you don't know leafleting, you can pay a company and then you'll find that your leaflets have gone in the bin. Or do you know what I mean? Or they're currently getting burned in the depot. So it's kind of, it's like, and someone who's done leafleting though, he used to get leafleters who were GPS tracked.
Yeah.
Now he would meet the leafleter on the track because he'd be able to see him.
Yeah.
Oh, he's on such a street. I used to go to this with a can and a chocolate bar or whatever it was and meet him because then he knows what happens then is that leafleter and that company know he's going to check. Do you know what I mean? Or I used to, when I got people to do leaflets and they go, I've delivered such and such address, such and such a road. I'd go, okay, then I'd knock on a couple of doors. By any chance, have you had a leaflet like this today? Yeah, we have. Perfect.
That's what you want, isn't it? You want to know that what you're paying for is being delivered in the way you want. Would you still do leaflets today if you were going to do it again? Like if you were going to do direct to vendor, you'd do leaflets.
Yeah.
Would you hand deliver them or would you get them GPS tracked and then assume they've been delivered?
I think now, because I haven't done it for that long, do them myself. Yeah. Get a team of, do you know what I mean? A couple of people to come out, but like do it myself to be on the ground and start building another database of empty properties. Do you know what I mean? Because you learn so much more being on the ground looking. And then I've done driving around where I used to get get an 8 off Amazon, highlight a pen and log every road. And it's not, people don't want to hear that. Oh, so I've got to drive down every road. And then you're up and then you've got to do a voice note of every empty property. Yeah. And then went on to Land Insight where the app used to follow you and you could just log it, take a picture. And then when you went back home, you'd have it on you. So I think people don't like the journey, do they? But it's like me, to be fair, it was funny because last week we did do a viewing and me and you were climbing on the trees, getting in the garden. And it was like you were two kids because we were like excited about this house, like standing over stuff. Do you know what I mean? But I think if you're excited about it, it'll only do well.
It's the journey, isn't it? I know people don't want to hear that, but the journey is the cool part. If you don't enjoy the journey, I've heard this said before. People are either motivated by the end result or whatever they think the end result is, or they're motivated by the journey. And the way that it's been described to me is if you're motivated by the end result, you will never, ever be satisfied because until you get that end result or what you put as your end result, you're going to be stressed about getting to your end result. And when you get to your end result, you're not going to be satisfied because, well, what comes next? A new end result. So then you're going to have a new journey. So you've had the first part of the journey, which you've not enjoyed because you tried to get to the first goal. Then you get to the first goal and then you've not really enjoyed it because you're like, well, I've got to get to the second one now. So you've not really had time to enjoy that. And then you're on the next part of the journey. And it just carries on like that as this endless cycle where the way that I view it is if you can enjoy the journey, if it makes you happy and you can find the bits of it that bring you joy, you're unbeatable at that stage. Like you're literally bulletproof because there isn't much that can go on that will derail you because yes, you want the end goal. And yes, everything is geared towards getting those end results. Of course it needs to be to make it viable, but you can enjoy the process. You can find the fun in what you're doing. Like you say, you and me climbing over fences, climbing through bushes. I spoke to a neighbour afterwards, and she said, was that you in the back garden just now? Because I called the owner and asked her, like, somebody meant to be in there. And she's like, yeah, the owner's, yeah, it's fine. Somebody's in there. But that for me is a buzz. The fact that any of that has gone on, you and me in the garden, next door neighbour being involved in it, somebody over the road knowing about it, all of that is a massive, massive buzz. But now that you said it, it does strike me as, yeah, people probably think there's too many barriers to entry for doing direct to vendor. Well, where do I record it? How do I record it? Am I going to have to translate it myself? What do I, like, there's ways around all this stuff. Like, it doesn't have to be a full on gig. Like I've said this, it doesn't have to be a full on all consuming, this is your day. It's my day because I love it, but it doesn't have to be everybody's. They can literally spend an hour a day doing this stuff in whichever ever formal fashion. I've shown on Instagram before. You can literally just spend 10 minutes going on Google Street View in your chosen area. And all right, it might not always be up to date, but you can just spend 10 minutes just scrolling the streets on Google Street View. You don't even have to leave your house to find an empty house. It's not that difficult to do. It's not. Or the alternative is, what I'm over aiming for is for me to become a Google Street View driver, because I think I would be amazing at being a Google Street View driver. I would go down every street. I would relish every street. I would do it regularly. None of this 12 years in between photos being taken nonsense. I'll be down there every other week getting those images, and I'll do every single street better than anybody else will ever do it. But I know that getting their jobs is very difficult because they never have advertised nationally. It's always highlighted as something else. It's always just a driving job, not Google Street View. Otherwise, you best believe I'm applying. So I guess anybody listens to this and thinks, Keith, I actually know how to get those jobs. Tell me, because I want to know. I want that job genuinely.
A good job.
Oh my God. It's me just in a car doing what I already do, but I'm getting paid for it now, like paid by a third party while also benefiting myself. It's better than anything, right?
It's like, I always used to try and track the posties.
Yes.
When I was doing that. Track the posties. You always track a postie, chat to a postie, corker, because it's like, just let you know, I'm looking, you know what I mean, just have a quick chat. So you'd always, if you, and I know we shouldn't, but I'll do it. So if you see a postie and you're doing direct to vendor and he's walking up one street, start at the other end and time it so you kind of delivering the same leaflet just before he delivers it. So you can have that conversation of going, yeah, mate, you go first and I'll go after you. And then you have to chat. Do you know what I mean? With the postie.
It is.
It's the little things, but them little things that you learn are the best little things to it's the process, isn't it?
How much of it for you genuinely is doing something that somebody else won't do or won't be able to get access to?
It's the biggest kick. That's the biggest, you get the biggest goal out of that, of someone going, I love it, used to love it when someone would say, what do I have tried? Can't get hold of them. Or no, do you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, now there's the challenge of it, isn't it? Of being that one to get it on the market or get it, whichever. And I think that I took from like direct to vendor into auctions of going, well, I can find that. Because I think the pain of losing a listing should hurt you deeply. And it does, do you know what makes it does to you? Because I know if you've got a property on your database that you've spoken to them, and then you see it go listing with like an agent or an auctioneer, and you're like, I hurt.
Yeah. I will never forget and I will never forgive a lady who had inherited a house, and I viewed it before anybody else. This was just before lockdown. I think I'd given her an offer and she said no. Left it for ages, almost ghosted me. And then she stuck it on either in auction or on the market. I can't remember which one. And I remember being outraged probably about it. I was like, why have you done that? I shouldn't even get back to me. And I've been checking in, nothing. And she's got no loyalty to me. There's no responsibility to get back to me. But I felt outraged. And then she sold it for less than I would have bought it for. And I said to her afterwards, why? She said, I just wanted to get rid of it. I'm like, we had a conversation. I told you what I'd offer and you've accepted less on the market. Now, after being a little baby about it, I did kind of check myself and I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do differently? Like, why did she not feel like she could sell that to me? Was it the frequency that I didn't speak to her? Because there's other stuff that I've missed out on where, again, another guy, I'd phoned him, I think, 4 separate times over about a year and said, you ready to sell it? Ready to sell it? And each time I was like, no, not yet. I've got to do some things. And it would always kind of palm me off. And I thought, okay, he's not that motivated. And it was an inherited property, a fairly sizable property as well. And I thought, okay, he's got a lot to kind of consider with this. And I'd left it and I never got back to him for about a year and a half. It just dropped off my database. I think I'd maybe put an unending event reminder on there. Eventually got back in contact with him and he said, oh no, I sold that 6 months ago. And again, I looked on market and I was like, he sold that for less than I would have paid. And again, that hurts me to my core, not because he's found another route necessarily, but because I always think, what could I have done differently? And there's sometimes where you can't do right. But to your point, you always feel like, oh, if I've had that contact, or if I can get in contact with them, I'm confident in my abilities. But it burns your soul when you can't get the deal done and somebody else does. That's probably the most painful bit of direct to vendor, right?
It's even, I asked someone asked me the question the other day. I was an estate agent 15 years ago, something like that. And I still remember the bungalow in Runcorn and the old couple's faces who went out and valued, and literally they went on with another agent. And that was my first ever loss as a valuation. And that's like, I still remember the bungalow. I still remember the house. I still remember the couple's old thing. And I remember it going on, and I was like, my God.
Why do you think they didn't sell it? Why do you think they didn't put it on with you?
It was the valuation.
Really?
Because I remember it would come on higher than what I said it would get. It pained me so much. I remember I thought, I've got to go and knock. I've literally got to go and knock. Got to. And I remember knocking, and she was like, come in, Ray. Do you want a cup of tea? I was like, to be fair, I'm upset. That board's not mine. She was like, oh, I'm so sorry, Ray. I'm so sorry. But he did say he'd get more. And I'm like, I know, okay, fair enough. That, as long as it was that, because I can't compete with that. I wouldn't have put it on at that. So I can't compete with that. As long as it's that. But still to this day, oh, it was painful.
It burns, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really burns. It does make, I think direct to vendor really makes you reflect on your own abilities, how you come across, what you can present to people. That's why I love it so much, I think, because it is a constant game of improving yourself, which sounds quite wanky, I guess, but I think it is. Like, what other things can I offer you in terms of an exit for this? All right, is it the exit that's a problem? No, it's the way that I came across. Okay, how did I come across that? Have a real reflection, which, again, most people probably don't want to have that in-depth detail. They literally just want to go and view a house, have no emotional attachment to anything to do with it, put forward an offer and move on to the next one, just do high volume that way. I want the relationship with somebody to see if I can get that deal done and find them something that works for them that they can't otherwise get. But yeah, you've really made me think about why people don't do direct to vendor. I think it's still accessible for everybody. I absolutely think it's accessible. I don't think it has to be as complicated as people make it. I don't think it has to be as in-depth as people think that it is. I think you can literally take it as a strategy and just slot it into everything else you do. And I think if you can't spend an hour a day or even 5 hours a week doing it to get some leads, I would question where that time is being spent, honestly. And I've got 3.5-year-old, so I know all about having no time. I just wonder if where people spend that 5 hours. Love Island, maybe. That's fair enough, actually. Love Island's fair.
You've got to balance it out. Life's all about balances. I think it's that. I think the world we're living in now, everything's so quick.
Yeah. They want
And I
quickness,
think that's the key to it. You know what I mean? It's like now. I remember the other day, me and my wife, and there was a program we watched, a series, and I was like, "What? It's one a week? How dare they?" Because you want to watch it. But even though, like as you say, we've got like a 3.5-year-old ourselves. Even though gone are the days where you could binge watch a series anyway,
It's not
because it's
lockdown
just
anymore.
never happening.
No,
Never happening. Do you know what I mean? But you go, oh, I've got to wait a week to watch this.
But you can have that in direct to vendor. If you've got enough leads, you can. Like, I woke up this morning and yesterday to 10 leads. I'm like, well, that's great. Like, I literally get to wake up with that. And why don't, like, there can be enough. There can be enough follow up conversations, viewings, offers, new lead generation. Like, it can be that. And it doesn't have to be all consuming either. I feel like I think maybe I've misrepresented it at times as well, truthfully. Again, talk about self reflection. I think about how have I portrayed it? What have people seen from me driving around for ages in my car, talking about the buzz I get? Maybe people think all I do is spend all my time in the car, living, sleeping, peeing in there, eating Tesco's meal deals, and that's what I do in my life. That's not at all. It's not at all. I send out very strategic letters regularly, do other things to do with direct to vendor as well. But on the letter front, it's sending out strategic letters while also going from point A. Like, we went to a children's museum yesterday. Sounds well boring. It wasn't. It was in Leeds, Halifax. It's a children's play centre. On the way there, I saw 2 houses in the next town over from me. I'm like, I need to do something with it then. That's all it takes. Just opening your big papers, just being like, bing, where can I see a house? That's it. And then just making sure you remember it and send it a letter. That takes nothing. Literally no time.
I think, as you say, people want the end result before they've done the start, the middle, and the work.
Yeah. I get it. I guess I do get it. I don't do it myself, but I do get it. People want an easier life. Yeah. I mean, I love it.
I think
I'm never gonna agree.
if you're after an easier life,
Get out of property.
but then anyway, not property because it's not. But also direct to vendor is because you're probably seeing. So when you first started, did you get instant results?
No, that's a really good point. No, probably not. Probably not, because there's a massive learning phase that I had to go through, because no one else that I knew of was doing it. Like, we didn't know each other, so I could never have come to you and gone, Ray, can you help us out a bit? No one was doing it. No one was talking about it. Not to say that I founded it. Of course, I effing didn't, but literally nobody was talking about doing it. And so I had to learn it all by myself. And I don't say that for a pat on the back, because I definitely effed up a lot of stuff. And I spent money doing that and learning a lot from it. So I definitely didn't get instant results. But over time, like, yeah, absolutely. Like, it's a consistent lead generator when you know what you're doing and knowing how to pitch something and who to pitch it to and different routes to go with it. And it doesn't all have to be just driving around. Like, there are other ways of finding motivated sellers that aren't driving around. I just think people, I don't know. I go back to what I said earlier. I think people look for it to be hard so they can look to go, I knew it didn't work, and then move on. And it's just not the reality. You've made it work. I've made it work. So many people do.
And I think as well is you're very confident enough to go, well, there's a house I want it. I want to knock at the door to see what they think or if they can give me any order. And I always say it, you find an empty house, the first point of call before any letter really is knocking on the neighbours. If it's close, if it's a road, knock the neighbour's door and just see. Pick the nets. If you see any nets in the road, go to the nets. Follow the nets, because the nets are mainly old people who have lived there for years, who probably know everyone or in that road, predominantly most of the time, and see, do you know such and such from number 22? Because most people don't want to live next to a property that's overgrown, because it's, one, not the best look for the road or the area. Two, brings their value of the house down, especially if they live next door. And it brings a lot of rats
Whichever way
in all
you want to
types
look
of
at
form.
it.
And that's the thing, isn't it? So
Yeah.
they will give you that information.
Completely.
How do you approach that on a doorstep?
So let me just shoehorn in direct to vendor training for a second. So I created some direct to vendor training for you because I constantly got the same questions and feedback about how do you do it? And I also sat on it for a while and thought, what is it that is stopping people doing it? And I didn't think exactly what you said, which is not everybody is designed or wants to do what you and I have done, which is knocking on doors, being creative with the way that we approach people and how to pitch something. And that isn't for everybody. So the direct to vendor training that I put together covers it literally from what does an empty house look like, which sounds very rudimentary, but some people don't genuinely think about it, and that's okay. But it covers what does a house look like, how would you approach the house or the person, how would you go about formulating a letter, how often would you send it, what would you say to a neighbor or to the owner on the phone and in person, what can you expect as a response, everything all the way through to viewing it, why is that different to on the market, to putting forward an offer, to an exit for it. So it's literally everything you could want. There is literally, in my mind, everything there for somebody to do it without ever having to worry about it again. But to answer your question, the way that I would go about it is I would knock on the door and I genuinely point in next door and go, I know you've probably been asked a million times, what's going on with it? And 99.9 times they will tell me what's going on with it. It's as simple as that. Like, it's not, I think people in their minds, when they don't do it, think that person's going to come out and breathe fire on me. They're going to chase me down the street. My name's going to be on lampposts everywhere. They're not. Because to your point, it devalues a house. Living next door to a house that's got massive vegetation issues, and we all know that out the front is better than out the back. The amount of houses that I've been invited into, I'll come and have a look out the back. No, I don't need to. I can see it from the front. No, come out the back. I'm like, this is wild. People literally invite you into the house all the way through to the back to show you the problem that they're facing because no one else is looking at it. The councils, God bless them, but they do not have the capacity or care to deal with everything. And it's so obvious as well. And listen, I go to a fair few council things where I know where their kind of capacity is. They don't have the capacity to deal with it all. And so it does rely on people, individuals, to deal with that problem. And so if you're a neighbour living next door to that, knowing that the council can't really do much, you're desperate for somebody to turn up and go, I'll have a look at it. I've got unending enthusiasm. I'll try and get your result. And if I can't, I'm really sorry, but I tried. People want a bit of hope. They want new interest in it. Because if you sat there for 5 years next to somebody's house and nothing's changed, somebody pops up on your doorstep all of a sudden. Now, oh my God, I don't have to worry about it for myself anymore. These extra people can worry about it. I honestly feel like people that do direct to vendor in the way that we're talking about provide a relief for people who live next door to terrible houses. again, to be real clear, when I knock on a neighbour's door, I literally will point at next door, make a joke out of it because no one wants it to be serious, and just say, I know you've been asked a million times, what's the situation? True story. And I hate to keep pulling back the curtain on this stuff, but it is relevant. You sent me one where the top window had been blown out. I'm not going to mention the street. The top window had been blown out. It had window frames in the front garden. I knocked on the neighbours and they said, he works for the council. There's a council worker that lives there. So why do people think the council are going to be dealing with problems when council workers occasionally are living in houses that are basically derelict? And again, I'm not throwing any judgment on anybody for how they want to live. Everybody lives their own life. That's absolutely fine. But it's having an impact on other people at that point. Like somebody needs to do something about it. And I spoke to the council worker as well. And he said, no, I'm not interested in selling ever. Okay, there's not much I can do with that. That's the worst case scenario. Somebody who could solve it can't solve it because they live in the house. What do you do with that? That's mad, no?
I think everyone, as you say, I've come across. I remember sending a letter out, and the woman who lived there rang me and said, "How dare you send that letter out? Because the house is not empty." And I was like, "I'm so sorry." And then I sent her a bunch of flowers the next day to say I apologise. But to be fair, it was boarded up and it looked empty. I wasn't like, do you know what I mean? It wasn't just a random house. But I remember regarding the council, I remember speaking to a council person. Won't name names, but as they said, is majority of councils, their hands are tied when it comes to putting these properties back in use because they can do work to them, they can take them to court. But he said, if you can get a solicitor to act on the council's behalf to pursue someone from court through court and then basically take the property off them and put it in an auction or sell it without them wanting it to be sold because they owe money on it or it's overgrown. He said, there's not many solicitors in the country that will do it through fear of the person who, because if you can imagine, even this property could be empty for 10 years, overgrown, causing massive problems in the local community, massive problems to the neighbours. But if that solicitor takes that to court, takes that property off them, the council then sell it, that seller then goes, well, I'm going to paper and saying such and such solicitors robbed the house off me. Yes, by law, that can be done, but no solicitor practice wants that in the public domain. So that's why, and it was a council who worked in one of the empty property teams said that's where they struggle with that process because no solicitor's going to really want to take the house off someone.
It's a really rough one, isn't it? And it's only, for me, it only seems rough for the neighbours in the community because the homeowner can play the game, right? Like there's one that I've got my eye on, spoken to the council and they said, I get what you're saying, but every time we speak to them, they do tidy up the garden. It's still a dump, by the way, like the garden's still in really bad condition, but they're playing the game. They're tidying it up just enough so that they don't get hassle from the council. So the council can't do anything. So then the neighbours who've got a very nice looking house where they've spent money on it, have that house next door. And you think, all right, while you live there, it doesn't really matter. But when you go to sell that house, unless you're going to, I don't mean, what are you doing to the next door house to hide it? Are you sticking up big boarding around it? No. So the people that are going to come view your house are going to see next door and wonder, do I really want to live here? And it does, it has a detrimental impact. And I know that everybody's situation is different, but I just view it as, especially if somebody doesn't live there, they are willfully being negligent with it. They just are. Again, I went past one the other day and it is completely derelict. It should be in a Netflix horror show. Like it shouldn't stand. Trying to get hold of the owner and asking them to sell it is a different story altogether. And there are always going to be circumstances. It was a family home, emotional ties attached to it. I just think it's a really difficult one to have on your books for 20 years and do nothing with, knowing that number one, you're causing problems for people, but number two, you could financially benefit from that without having the worry. And I think that some of it is a lot of people that own these homes don't realize there is a solution without the need to put it on the market, have the judgment, have the effort. People like yourself, myself, other people who do it can solve that. But it's just being able to get in contact with them, which is, like you say, it's part of the process, part of the game, part of the fun, right? How can I get hold of them to put it in a way that they would be receptive to?
Yeah, I think as well. But I found a lot of the people who had the properties weren't local, so didn't get to see it. So it's out of. Oh, don't worry about that. Because I remember I remember I was speaking to one seller, and he was like, "The council's on me back all the time, and this and that." And I was like, "Yeah, because you're down south. This is on the Wirral. You don't see it. So think of it this way: if you had a property opposite yours that was overgrown and the kids were smashing in and setting fire to it, would you be on the council?" You went, "Well, yeah, I would." I said, "So that's the reason why the councils are on your back." Because I remember speaking to one of the guys I knew, and he was like, "Yeah, we'd done all the garden, We'd fixed the fence. It was $3,000, and we were due to take him to court. And like a couple of days before we started the process, he come in the council at 5 o'clock with 3,000 paid off in pennies. So we had to count it. There's a lot of people who don't know what to do with it, and it's suddenly gone past the stage of, wow, what do we do with it now compared to what it was? And there's a lot of emotional things. I think you'll probably have come across it myself. I've come across it where I remember there was one in Birkenhead, and I got in touch with the seller, same again, direct to vendor, and she was like, didn't even know he owned it anymore. I just left, right? After an emotional thing, I just left, and I haven't been back since. I didn't even know. I thought it'd been taken off me. It'd been sitting there for years and years. And it was sad because I said to her, what do you want? She said, if there's any pictures in the house, could you get them? Because I don't want to go back to it.
Yeah.
But that's all I want.
And that's the key thing, isn't it? That's the flexibility that we have as direct to vendor, is that we can do that. And the photos of the house in general wouldn't go online. So they get to do it privately and just be at distance. But it's having that first point of contact. And to be clear as well, on both our behalves, we're not criticizing people who leave their house empty for years and years. There's any number of reasons, and anybody can point the finger at someone else and go, well, why have you left it that long? On anything, like, why have you not tied up in a day? Why have you not done that bit of renovation work at your own home? It just seems more obvious when it's a house and the value is there, and it's more obvious to everybody that it's in that condition. But you've got to think, like, what is so distressing for somebody to not want to do anything with that? And then how can I reach them and have that dialogue on a level where they're receptive to it? Because everybody thinks, I can imagine, people think that if you've had a house empty for 20 years and it's in a real state, the next person that speaks to you is going to have a go at you. When that's not the case, and then we go full circle, right? Because it is about the human element. How can you construct that conversation? How can you sympathize with them? How can you put it in a way where you're there to help them, not to hurt them or laugh at them or hinder them? Can we solve this? Can you benefit from it? Can you move on? Can I give you some form of closure with it, whether that's financial or emotional? Can I help you with this process? And in doing that, help the people who are either side of the property and opposite see something different day in, day out, because no one wants to live there. And it's a really fine balance, isn't it? It's a really fine balance. But I think it's a skill as well, right? The communication, like you can obviously talk to people. There's no doubt you can talk to people. I think that I've probably built up the skill of talking to people through my previous job and obviously doing this. And again, not everybody is designed to do that, but you don't have to always do it in person or on the phone. Do it on email or text message. You get to dictate, when you do direct to vendor, how you're going to speak to somebody, like the format you're going to speak to them in. Letters has been a good form for me. Text messages are great right now, but actually phone calls and in person works best for me.
Would you prefer phone calls? Would you prefer to be in front of a vendor than over the phone?
Well, that's a good question. Depends on what stage it's at, right? When it's an initial thing, I used to be quite lazy with it. I think on reflection, I used to be quite lazy and just text them. But so much is lost through texting them. It's convenient and it's a written record. It's great. But the conversation you can have on the phone, the way that you can understand them, the intonation they have in the way that they speak, the cadence that they speak with, how they express certain points tells you everything. And you're not going to get that from a text message. Text message is cold. So I'd rather speak on the phone as a first port of call. I think that's probably how I'd rather speak to them. First off, I think, because that almost softens any form of conversation from there. Speaking to somebody straight up about their empty house, I've found to be quite challenging. How have you found it? From a first port of call, would you rather speak to them in person or on the phone?
I think I've always liked to speak to them in person to get the reactions, because the phone, but I always used to listen more than I speak, even though people will go, but you're always speaking. I am, but when I'm speaking with sellers, whenever it was direct to vendor or even now, I always say this to all the team, is if you listen more than you speak, you'll learn more about their situation, of why. Because it's a story, isn't it? We found this property because, as well as, if you do direct to vendor properly, they can offload, and you will probably find that yourself, is if you get a seller and you go, well, I've seen you've got an empty property and it looks like it's been empty for years. What's the situation? Do you need help with it? That's probably the first person who's asked that question to them for years, rather than the majority of people have rang up and said, so you got an empty property, I'll buy it off you. But they may not, one, want to sell it yet, or two, emotionally be able to sell it. Because we sell a lot of probates, and there's been times when, like, people just go, all right, I just need to sell it, but I don't want to sell it. Prime example, we had one in Liverpool recently where it was an auntie who'd gone into a care home. Her auntie had dementia, so she understood bit, but didn't understand much. So she always thought she was going to go home, this auntie, but obviously she never was. So the relation was having to sell the house to pay for the care fees. But as she said to me, I feel like I'm selling it under her feet because she thinks at one point she'll go back home.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but you need to do that in order to pay for the fees. And she went, I know, but I don't really want it. And then it got loads of interest, to be fair, and everyone wanted to buy it before the auction. So I was saying no. And I remember one buyer said, you've got to put the offer forward. I said, I have got to put the offer forward, and I will put the offer forward. But the reason being is it's not because of anything onto it. It's because I don't want to put her in a position where she has to decide on whether the price is right or wrong.
Yeah.
Because technically she doesn't really want to sell.
Yeah.
Just let the auction do its thing.
Yeah. That'd be the deciding factor. And then she can feel less responsible for it. That's a really rough situation, isn't it? But it's not uncommon either. People needing to make decisions about a house where maybe it was a family house, or in that instance, they felt like they were maybe doing something a bit dirty by selling it. This is the thing, isn't it? People don't ask to be put into the situations they're in, and not everybody has the skill set to deal with it at the time. But then they meet somebody like yourself or myself, where actually somebody can help them, somebody who is impartial, who can be that ear for them, but also practically advise them on what their options are. And I will always be open with everybody. Again, go back to a conversation I had this morning with a lady where I told her her property's worth far less than it is. That's not a fun conversation to have. I wouldn't pick that for the first thing on a Monday morning. But I'd also told her on Friday, I will call you on Monday regardless. So I did. But I told her, look, your options from here are, you could stick it on the market, but every single lender is going to see what a valuation is, and they will not proceed with it at the price point you want it to be. And then every buyer is going to back out, and you're going to waste your time and energy, and you deserve better than that. And so I laid out for her what the options are. I tried to get her in contact with your auction house, but she said I'd already spoken to an auction house. Sorry, mate, I did try. And so for me, it's about being that ear for them, listening to them, understanding, which some of that comes from experience, right? Like, you've spoken to enough people now to know kind of where people might be at. That's not to say that every situation isn't unique, because it definitely is, but you know broadly what umbrella it would come under, and then what might have helped somebody in the past, and you can apply that. But for me, I just think it's about giving people the information. Give them the information, let them make the choice. And if they're choosing to work with a person that they trust based on how they've come across, based on the honesty or however they are, great. If they choose one of the national companies who might do something to them that they don't want to go down the route of, at least they've been informed about how that might play out. So they're braced for it. I just think people need information. That's all it is.
Think now, did you used to give the offers over the phone, or did you deal with a lot of offers via text, or do you still deal with a lot of offers via text?
That's a really interestingly timed question. I've been giving out not offers via text, but I've been telling them over text, I won't put forward an offer based on where your expectation is, because some people's expectation is I want market price. And I'm like, okay, here's what you have to expect with that. Here's what I offer. And I give them a bit of an understanding as to what I might offer, but not without a clear offer. When it's going to be an offer that I think this is worth a conversation, I will always call them. And I didn't used to, because again, that was out of laziness of, can I just do volume? Can I just do volume? Volume is not the one. It's taking the time, which I now see. And to go back to something you asked earlier about, has my process changed over time? That very clearly has. I used to be all about volume, send out thousands of letters, just do volume. But the quality then goes down. Either the quality of the lead or the quality of my response goes down, same as offers, right? And so I now take the time where I think there's an actual conversation about an offer, or even just justifying it. Maybe for me, it's justifying, or explaining to somebody where my offer is at. That's a phone call for me. Again, that's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to have that kind of phone call, which is why an agent is good, right? They can be that barrier to entry. They can then put that forward, that offer, and you can be told no via a third party. I'd rather speak to somebody and explain to them, here's my offer, here's where it's at, and here's why it's at that, and maybe evidence it for them over the phone a little bit, and then listen to them, listen to what they're saying about it. Like, that's too low for me. Okay, what do you need? And then there's a conversation to be had off that. A text message for me doesn't give that secondary follow-up or insight. It's just blank, isn't it, right?
I think it's just too brutal.
Yeah.
Because you can send a text message to someone that in your mind reads quite sympathetic, but then by the time it gets to them, it's less sympathetic.
To text you, here's the results to your scan that we did, and it's just a 1-line text message or a 5-line text message. You'd be like, wait, but what's the context? Like, what do I have to know about this? Like, it doesn't help, does it?
Probably the same as in what you're telling 99% of the sellers is not technically what they want to hear.
Definitely not. No.
Do you know what I mean? You're like
I can't
the
solve their
Grim
problem
Reaper.
of what they want. They want maximum price sold immediately and in privacy. That doesn't exist, so I can't help them with that.
But by being, and I think that's where a lot of people like panic, don't they? Go, "Well, when I took over the auction, team, some of the team were like, but how do you go about telling them the figure?" And I'm like, but because you've got to tell them the figure. There's no other way of doing it. You can sugarcoat it as much as you want. Do you know what I mean? But deep down, you know the figure. And as I was saying to you last week, we've done valuations, like value your own stock, but value the stock last week. And as I said to you, you learn from, and all the values out there will know and they'll agree in it. Some will say no, but they'll all agree deep down. When a seller comes to you and tells you the story, and then you value it based on their story, deep down, you know, oh, I've overpriced it. But do you know what? Such and such and such and such. And it is true because when we were looking at stock, the stories come, the reasons behind the valuation. And that's where a lot of people miss. If you bought a property and you were putting it to an auction to us and you rung up and you went, right, got this one, what it is, as soon as you say that, I know what's coming next is
Yeah,
the fact that you've listened to a seller, they've told you the story, you've bought it for X, where deep down you potentially go, no, I've bought it for much more than I should have, but now I've got to sell it, and now I've got to get to the point of where I need it to be. And that's the reason why I'm going to say, and it's always the way, when a seller comes to you and goes, right, what it is, and then you know it's coming. And that, and then you go, okay, then
it's so true.
that's what's coming next is the reasons why I need to realistically look at it because of X, Y, Z and this and that and this. And when you laugh, then you know deep down there's been times when you've said it.
100%. So I'll give you a really key example that ties into the auction company, right? I'm not selling something through you, but I spoke to Joe the other day. So there's a seller at the moment who wanted to sell two different properties, one of which is on the market, and he wanted to move on from them fairly quickly because they wanted to buy somewhere else. Cool. I gave him a rough price there and then. He said, no, that's less than a national company would give me. I was like, fine, I understand. He then came back to me and said, would you move on from your figure, like just up a little bit? So that now tells me the other company hasn't come through for them. So I'm like, I'll relook at it, definitely. And I sent it to Joe because that would be my first exit, be come to you guys, sell it through you guys. Once I bought it from them, obviously. Spoke to Joe. Joe did a really good job of being really factual around where prices were at. And that's really good for me because I knew that what I'd offered him was too much. I was basing it on, you might be able to do a loft conversion, you might be able to you'd obviously get a bigger square meterage, square footage for the house, and then the price would go up. On second look, I was definitely trying to make that square peg fit in a round hole, and it does not fit in that round hole. And Joe was really clear with that. So my conversation now is to go back to that owner and say, that price cannot exist anymore. This is my new price, and this is where it'd have to be. And he's never going to take it in a million years, and I know that because his expectation is based on something that's unachievable for anybody. And I've spoken to another investor who's looked at it, so it's just not going to happen. But that's a really good insight into, I knew when he came back to me, here's a chance, but I also knew my numbers need to be spot on with this because I'm projecting it will be worth X based on a better price. And me and Joe have always got very similar prices when we think about what an auction lot is worth or what a house would be worth. So I trust her. And then when she came back and told me what the price was, I was like, yeah, I know. And so then I went away, looked at what she looked at, looked again at my original comparable and was like, yeah, no, I was estimating too high in order to get the deal done. That doesn't work because then you're just shooting yourself in the foot to be nice to somebody. And it's nice to be nice, but people don't remember that. They remember how you can actually help them. And if I can't help somebody, I shouldn't effing tell them that I can do without being able to help them. Yeah. So, and listen, I've been doing this for long enough to know better now. And yet I still fall foul of it from time to time. Got caught up in the story completely to your point.
For instance, right, you buy and then you sell, right? So sometimes you'll do refurbs and stuff like that. Does it change your like? Because I always speak to like traders like yourselves, and some traders will go, "Listen, I bought for that. I need that. Fine, perfect. It marries up." But as you just said, then when you buy with emotion, even though you're in the business of not buying with emotion, can you sense that you've changed when you come to sell it? As in, you go, "Well, I need that."
Yeah,
A prime example, it's like this was a probate, and I think it was 8 grandkids. So he said, so it's worth it. I've got to get 80 grand. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. We can't value it on the basis of how many grandkids there is who are going to get 10 grand each. I mean, if they can't work like that, I wish it could. Do you know what I mean? But it can't. When you got the figure off Joe, deep down you knew that figure was right. What I'm trying to get to, were you still trying to convince yourself that what you offered was right, or did you cut it out by that point?
So I'd already cut it out. I've got to a good place in life where I can be very honest with myself very quickly and be like, you're chatting shit. Like my ego's got in the way there. And I kind of knew it had done. You just know, don't you? Intrinsically, you know. If you've been doing it long enough and put out enough offers, you know when something doesn't feel 100% right. And even when somebody comes back and says, I'll accept your offer, we all still get that moment of, fuck, have I overpriced it? Like, what if? But it's the ego just trying to protect you a little bit. In this instance with Joe, I knew straight away that I was wrong. And I'm quite happy to admit that. Again, because I've spoken to Joe so many times over a period of time, I know that we think the same on prices, and we both said it to one another as well. So I know that she is right. And she was a really good sense check for me to say, this is where the price is at, and here's why it's at that. And she evidenced everything, which was spot on. Like I do the same research she does. I just went into that one in particular through an optimistic lens of, I think I'd had another viewing on the day as well. I was like, I'm buzzing. We're going to be buying all these. And I must have got carried away. It was a beautiful day outside. I even remember it was a really hot day. I'm like, what a great day. And then speaking to Joan, she's like the bearer of bad news, but the realistic news as well, right? Because then that gives me clarity around the price isn't achievable. But now it's just about how do I relay that to a seller? And again, to go back to my very first point, for me, it's always about the flaw of, as an absolute worst, I want him to know that he can contact me should he still want to sell it at the price that I'm going to be promoting to him. And here's why. I'm not interested in being best mates with him. Nobody wants to be best mates in this business. We just want to get it done in the way it needs to get done. But yeah, I absolutely knew that I was wrong. But there's definitely been times in the past I'm like, no, that's not right. I'm right. I know what I'm doing. And I've been wrong on stuff. And I've had that enough to know that I am not right on everything. But again, it comes to your point, right? It comes down to the people that you know and the people that you trust around you and having that team around you. You've got a really good team of people around you where everybody trusts each other to judge other stock accurately. I trust the people that I work with and who I speak to regularly to give me an honest assessment. Same for you, right? Like we spoke last week about values on houses, and it was good going back and forth and seeing where you were getting stuff from, where I could get stuff from, and where we're getting our context from. I trust what is being said. And so it's nice to have that sense check, especially when you work for yourself. You can kind of get caught up in your own little bubble. You can't do that in this business because if you get caught up in the bubble, all of a sudden you're dropping an extra 100 grand on a house that doesn't deserve it. It's madness.
Have you ever had an absolute deal that you've gone, oh my God, this was the worst one I've ever had? This is like, I've actually not made no money, or I've broke even, or the market's just turned.
Yeah. I won't talk about it now. It's a dogs episode. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Market changed massively and a number of other things. And it honestly crippled me, genuinely crippled me from every level that you can think of. And I didn't like anything that went on. But I would always say it taught me the most about me and how I operate and what I'm capable of. And I know that certain things wouldn't happen again because of how it played out. But definitely things have changed. That was probably more serious than you want. You probably wanted like a light story of, yeah, I left an extra 10 grand in a deal. No, this was brutal, like really bad.
No, because you learn more from that. Do you know what I mean? If you jump into the world of property, and do you know what I mean? It's like, and forever you're always learning and you're always earning and everything's good. It's prime example. It's like I remember leaving me agency valuable to set up weekly property sales, which was a fixed fee upfront model way before people were even a thought of. And I thought, if I can list 30 houses, 20 houses, pay me X amount upfront, this will be brilliant. No market experience, no brand experience, just hope more than anything. And I remember it kicking me right in the face because I didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
About marketing, about branding, about lead generation. I just thought, delivered a couple of leaflets, get it. And being completely honest, it just died a death. But I've still got a photo. And this was, I think, I don't even know where it was, back years ago. But I've still got the photo of the first check that I got
Nice.
of a woman giving me yeah, go on, we'll sell for that. I think it was £450 up front. But it's that thing, isn't it? You learn so much more from the times it doesn't go right compared to the times it goes right. And I think if you have them ups and downs, you'll learn more, because if you're always making money on them, you don't learn nothing, do you? And then I think your ego can quite quickly go. And then that's where you go, yeah, but I made that on that one, so I can make it on this one. Well, it's that.
And there's something to be said for that, right? Like the ego carrying you through optimistically when things are not great. But I've heard the phrase uttered twice in the last week about, if you're in rough seas, would you rather a sailor who has never been in rough seas before or a sailor who's only been in rough seas before? And you would choose the one who's well conditioned to dealing with bad situations. Now, at some point, you have to look at yourself, as I've quite rightly said, and be like, okay, what could I have done better? What part did I have to play in this? But you need those reps. And I think, to go back to a common thread throughout our conversation, I genuinely feel like people don't want to have the licks and the cuts that you get from doing property, from having bad experiences, because people don't want the negatives. And I get that, because why would you ever say, I want a dick kick, thank you? No, you don't. Nobody wants a dick kick. But if you never take any, and then all of a sudden you do a bigger project because everything's gone swimmingly, and then you get a big dick kick, well, you best believe that's the biggest dick kick you're ever going to get, because you've got no calluses built up already to get you through that bigger dick kick. Whereas if you've had little dick kicks all the way along, and then you get the big one, well, at least you've got those years of experience of going, okay, it's still painful, but I've got some experience in this, and I now know who to speak to and where I can go with it. I think avoiding pain is the quickest way to failure. I genuinely believe, not in a sadistic way, I genuinely believe people need to not be afraid of pain, because it's going to happen if you're growing. You cannot have. When I was growing up, I'm 6'3". You're similar, right? 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
I used to have growing pains in my legs all the time, but I wouldn't have got to my height had I not had growing pains. A weird analogy, I get that, but I would never have had that. Now, there's nothing I can do about having those pains. I can't use that positively in my life, but it's the knowledge that you do need those if you're going to be growing in any way, shape, or form. Comfort is the worst place to be. I really believe that, if you're looking at achieving some really cool stuff. And I know that you constantly are growing and working and developing things. You must have had so many licks over your time, right? And yet you're still standing, still growing, and it's not stopped you. Why has it not stopped you?
For me, because going like a bit deep, but my mum passed away suddenly when I was like 15, and I remember it still, of my mum saying to me, "Don't be late." So I was like 15 going out, "Don't be late. Don't be breaking your watch and saying, back in the day, you got to be in for 9, and you're like, I've lost my watch." And then suddenly the watch would appear in your room, like, you know what I mean, that you snapped it or you were having it. And I remember her saying it, and then she'd had a heart attack. So that was the last time I seen her. But with me mum, bearing in mind I'm 6'4" and I was very tall then, wanted to be a jockey. Well, that's never going to happen, is it, realistically? Do you know what I mean? You're not going to see me going around Aintree on a horse, because literally everyone else is like tiny. But it always brings me joy, because my mum used to always say to me, "You could do anything you want." "All right, mum, yeah." So for Christmas, I remember my dad's face. He was like, "What do you want for Christmas?" I said, "A pair of joppers." And he was like, "Oh." And my dad's born and bred in Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? Teach karate, box. I was like, "Because I want to be a jockey." And he was like, and my mum was like, "You can do whatever you want. You always say the same." So my dad's like, "Okay, if you want joppers." Couldn't ride horses really. And I think what it was is, I remember going to watch, remember the Robin Hood film
Yeah.
with Kevin Costner, where they're riding and you're like, yes. So, and then I was like, that's all I want to. But even though by where we lived, there was farms and the horses over the road, and I used to go up to the farm, and he was like a little Shetland pony. It was tiny. That was my idea. Even though my legs were that long, it probably touched the floor anyway. You know what I mean? But it's that.
Yeah.
And I've had loads of like times when I've gone, wow, that's been a bit of a kick. But I always feel like it's a competitive thing, I think,
Mm.
of what can beat you and what can really actually, do you know what I mean? Can it really take you out the game? And you go, I don't want to play anymore. Or do you go, that's tough, that. But then stay in it.
Yeah. Show that you can still overcome it, even from a personal pride standpoint of, see, you can't beat me, and then it can't be you next time because it's not beating you once before. And I think but again, I think you do a really good job of this, and I think I do quite a good job as well, which is you take the lessons from the experience that you have. You don't just ignore them and pretend it didn't happen and then carry on, because when the same thing comes around again, you're going to be starting from scratch again. But you've taken it, you move on. So the business that you wanted to start, I'm sure there were lessons within that you took into WRB auctions, and even now that you're like, okay, this is a really cool way about now how I need to market, how I need to contact people, that follow up, my expectations around it. It's anything, isn't it? If you look for the signs, they're there. They are there. It's just you need to be tuned into it.
I think you need to be open to it. And I think also, I know this will probably sound a bit weird, but whatever it is, whether it be business pain or emotional pain, personal pain, don't not stay in the moment of the pain and hide from it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people go, do you know what? I'm not even going to think about it. I'm going to put it to the back of my mind. I'm going to crack on. But you haven't really dealt with it. And that's being like emotional pain, because I remember when my late wife passed away, I stayed in the house a lot on my own, and everyone's like, "Why are you doing that?" And I was like, "Because that's what you've got to do. There's no point me going out every day and every night, because that can't be sustained. You can't keep on doing that." Yeah, at the start of anyone will know who've lost someone, that time around the loss, everyone's there, but then everyone has to go back to their own lives. They can't stay there constantly. They can't be bringing you tea every day. They can't be taking time off work and sitting in your house and just talking rubbish all day. So that everyone's life has to carry on. And I think if you then hide from the fact of your life changed, it'll come back to bite you in the arse later on down the line.
You need to deal with it, don't you? Which is a really brutal thing to know, but it needs to be dealt with at some stage, one way or another. Like to your point, I'm a big believer in taking time to just sit in silence, not in terms of meditation, but like I'll go for a walk and not have anything on. Not clothed. I mean, I'm fully clothed. Let's be clear on that. I'm fully clothed. I've not got music on. I'm not texting people, not listening to phone calls, nothing. I will just go for a walk, and I will know that there's something that I need to resolve while I'm out. And even if I don't know what it is when I've gone for a walk, I just know I need to go for a walk. And then by the time I come back, probably 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, I will be so much clearer on what that thing is, and I will have understood it so much better. But it's this goes back to what we're talking about with direct to vendor, right? See, I can shoehorn anything into direct to vendor, but it does in terms of people don't want to take on the hard part. And for you to acknowledge that when my wife passed, I sat by myself. For everybody, they'd be like, that sounds brutal. That sounds like that's going down a negative path. But you turned that and controlled that into a positive, which is incredible, right? Like there must have been times where you thought, I don't want to be doing this, surely. Or were you always clear on why you were doing it?
There's been times when I didn't want to, but I done it the first night.
Really?
Because that throughout my life I've always thought of it as, what's the worst thing? Like the worst thing, the fear. Whatever's, do it now. Because then, like, if you can imagine, if I'd done that the first night, the next night's only going to be easier. The night after that. And I think in this world, what you put out is what you get. It's like now people will see me. I've got a beautiful wife, a little boy, beautiful house. But that's because I dealt with what needs to be dealt with then. And I think that's the key, isn't it? It's like, and it sounds a weird thing, but on big decisions, major decisions, I've choose to toss a coin. And people go, what? Toss a coin on that major decision? I went, not because what it lands on. Before it lands, you'll have made a decision in your mind of what you want. So if you've got, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. If you toss a coin, you already decided. Deep down, you may not say it outright, but you've made that decision.
100% accurate. 100% accurate. Because we do. I genuinely think we can solve most of our own problems. I genuinely believe it's all intrinsic, not external. I don't believe that we need external input to solve a lot of things. Yeah, we do for guidance. I get that. But I think if we have enough time in our own space, in silence, we know what we want and we know how to do it and we can be really clear. But I think most people will, me as well, right? I'm no different. We will add in things that distract from it to make it easier because we deserve it or whatever the answer might be. And I don't believe that that is the long-term way of getting ahead in life. And I'm not talking getting ahead in life in terms of building billion-dollar businesses. I'm talking about just in life, like being happy and finding what really brings us joy. I think we can find that if we sit in silence for a bit and just understand ourselves a little bit better. Because I feel like most people probably don't know themselves that well. Most people wouldn't do the coin flip knowing and trusting that internally they know what they want, or they wouldn't sit a day after their wife or the night of their wife's funeral by themselves. I feel like most people wouldn't do that. It's a brave thing to do in some respects, definitely. And it's obviously served you really well, right? You're a living embodiment of it working out for you.
I think it doesn't work for everyone. I think it'll work for some people if they've got that belief in it. Now, yeah, there's a good question. What was your goal when you left the police? Your goal and your happiness was based on X, for instance. But what's it based on now compared to the years you've been doing it? Has the goal changed?
Yeah,
Or is
sure.
the goal still the same? Or is it kind of now you're like, wow? Because I asked Sean this question, and as Sean Newman, who runs all the businesses, he was like, my goal when I first started was to make as much money as possible. That was the goal, to be filthy rich, as you would say. My goal now is nothing to do with that because the boxes have been ticked. What was your goal? You've left the police. What was your goal at that day of leaving, and what was your aim.
Before I answer that, can I just ask, how old is Sean?
Off the top of my head, late 50s, I'd say.
Because I feel like I spoke about this with my wife yesterday, in fact. I feel like there's an age bracket for this stuff. I feel like up until like maybe mid-30s, it's striving for yourself. It's what can I do for myself to do the best I can possibly do with what I've got, whether that's monetary or achievements in whatever it is. But a lot of it is centered around kind of external goals and proving that you are the best that you can be. And then I feel like we get to a point where that switches and we're like, actually, this isn't just about me. There's something else here. Like either I need to be happier for myself or I need to make something for somebody else. And then I think there's a later stage as well where you start thinking, how can I help more people? And then those are the three kind of stages that I think there are. So I'm in the second stage as I see it. So the first stage was definitely, let's grow this business as far as we can go. I knew what we could do while I had a full-time job and was working around it. Surely it'll be easier while we're doing it for ourselves. But since the birth of my son, I know it's quite a cliche, but since the birth of a child, which I didn't think would have this impact, I'm like, I'm all in on my son, like all in on my son. Don't get me wrong, I still absolutely buzz for business and want to grow it, but I'm acutely aware now of my life does not need to be dictated by what my work achievements are. I'm doing it for joy and obviously for success and whatever that looks like, and for showing lessons to my son Leo. But for me, it's about being present for Leo and giving him something that. So my dad wasn't around when I was growing up. Not to say he didn't have a huge impact on me, massively did. And in fact, when I look back, I think he helped me understand about sending letters. I remember playing FIFA on the PlayStation with him, and he said, "What do you not like about the game?" And I told him something about it. He said, "Why don't you write to the makers of it and tell them that you don't like it, and would they change it in future?" Now, I don't think I ever wrote that letter, but I remember that always as, oh yeah, did he teach me that literally just ask and you can achieve something? Like there's nobody too big to speak to in this world. So if you don't ask, you don't get. Maybe that's part of it. But I look at what I didn't have growing up. I'm like, I want my son to have what I didn't have. So now most of my focus is around that. Like, what do I want his life to be like to set him up as best as possible while also showing him the values of consistent work, hard work, enjoying your work, and other stuff you can do. It's more of a personal goal for me now. It's similar-ish ages.
Yeah, I was 40.
Oh no, wait, you're
Yeah,
okay. You're 45 this year. Did you say?
yeah.
Cool. Similar ages. Where's your aim and ambition now?
I think,
You're in the growth phase, right?
yeah, I'm still in that competitive stage of, because I've only been at the auction company now coming up to just over a year.
Maybe that makes a difference, right?
I'm still in that,
When you change it.
yeah, I'm still in that like build something, do you know what I mean, to crazy. But Sean the other day on the podcast and we were talking and it's like now when you build a team, yes, there's a goal of building the team and building a big auction brand for me as an individual. But it's also the team are building,
Yeah.
but they're building themselves. Like when I said I want to do a podcast, this podcast is not about technically me, even though I do it. It's for the team and other people to put their, like, to improve their social media, improve their life, improve their leads, improve this, build something. And that's why I got you on, because it's like, I know your directive course will be a good course for anyone. So it's given the goal. And I think when it comes to me son, it's kind of seeing him like what he's got. Because I think now young kids, they know more than us anyway, than when we were kids. Do you know what I mean? And it sounds strange, but it's like, my little boy yesterday, my wife said, "What do you want?" And he's like, "A kiwi." I remember being in primary school, tasting a kiwi. Then coming to the end of primary school, well, what's that? That's a kiwi fruit. Do you know what I mean? Now the kids have so much knowledge
Yeah.
at the age of 3.5.
Yeah.
Is unbelievable.
It's crazy, right? Right.
It's just they learn so quicker. It's a prime example. We were having a coffee the other day, and there was a girl, probably 12, 13, on an iPad doing sums with her dad. And I remember telling my wife going, "Have you looked at them maths that she's doing?" And I was like, wow. Do you know what I mean?
See, graphics
And
calculators
you
were
look,
necessary. We needed graphics calculators with the calculators. I mean, ChatGPT, everything's going to be ChatGPT. Just bung it through there, and then, yep, I can answer it that way. That's crazy, isn't it? But then you've got
yeah,
your family, and also you've got like the work family, and it's not lost to me the fact that you're helping your work family grow in the same way that you're helping your own family grow, but obviously under a different guise, because you're helping them grow kind of in their skill set, in their desires, in terms of trying to unlock things for them. But you're still dedicating that time with them, and I think that's the second phase for people is helping others, even if it's growing your own business or growing an arm of your business, I think it is more than about, oh, it's not just about me. Like I can get other people to grow and develop and they can grow their own thing, and it might also benefit my business, but it is about the helping other people. I think that's where it comes in to a degree.
Yeah, I think it's if you focus on helping others, they'll only help you.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think it's a tough one, isn't it? Because like, it's the end goals, isn't it, for people? Do you know what I mean? And everyone, I always say this, everyone's goals are always going to be different, whether it be financial, whether it be a personal, or whether what they want to achieve. You can never go, well, everyone's got the same goals, because they haven't. I'm doing a lot of discovery calls with potential like auction experts or valuers, and you can see the difference in your financial goal compared to their financial goal or their emotional or what they want. So it's finding the balance of, but Sean put it up the other day in one of his things, which we done a snippet of, was most people will spend more time planning this year's weekly holiday than they will do spend the time planning 5 years of where they want to be. And do you think a lot of people don't set goals because they don't, or what if I don't achieve them?
I think it's part of it for sure. I think it's so nuanced, isn't it? I think some of it is not being confident that they'll be able to achieve it. So to your point, what if I don't achieve it? I think some people genuinely don't know what they want, and I haven't done at varying times. I'm like, wait, what is my direction? I think some people are scared of it. What if I fail? I think that definitely comes into it. Like, I don't want to be a failure. A failure to who? Like, no one cares. Like, if you aim for, I want to make $1 million in a year as a round figure, I want to make $1 million in a year, and you make 200,000. I'm not laughing at you. I think that's amazing. You've made 200,000 in a year. The only people laughing at you are people that are not striving for anything and are looking for something to be negative about. I just think people default to the path of least resistance. And if that is sitting in front of Netflix and completing Netflix week after week, that's what it is. It's going to serve them one way. But I think if you, I don't know, we're speaking on the same level because we both do similar stuff, right? Like, we're looking to improve ourselves, we're looking to grow, we'll consume different stuff. And not all the time, like, don't get me wrong, like, I get bored of trying to improve myself. I can find it really boring at times and go off the boil with it. But it has to be the right content for me to consume to really feel like I'm all in on this. But I think most people, that's probably unfair. I think some people don't want to improve because it takes up too much of their time. Again, I'm going to shoehorn it into direct to vendor because ding, I can do that. Same principle for direct to vendor. People don't want to send out consistent letters because, well, what if it doesn't work? I've wasted my time. I know for a fact I'm going to be watching Netflix and be happy, whereas sending out letters is an unknown. I think the same is true for self-development. I know what I'm going to get from watching Netflix. I'm going to be relieved and I'm going to be happy. I don't know what I'm going to unlock if I start doing self-development. I might have a real self-reflection and be like, fuck, I'm not happy. But then on the other side of that is I'm going to be so much happier. But you have to go through the real mud to get there. And I don't think people want to do that part of it. I think that's what it boils down to for me. Where do you come down on it?
I think if you're happy, you're realistically happy. Because don't get me wrong, if someone said, I love what I do, being an entrepreneur, doing this, it's brilliant and I love it. But sometimes I would love just to go, but I'm happy just being
100.
like, do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people won't admit that. But there's been times when I've gone, do you know what? I'd be happy I would have loved to just been that person who goes, got me 9 to 5, finish on a Friday at 5 o'clock, don't worry about it, enjoy. Because I've done literally every job there is. There's not probably one job that I've done everything. But it's kind of, if you're happy and content in your life, then that's brilliant. That's, because people say, like, people always look at, well, what's the word? What success is. Some people's success is a big house, flash car, loads of money in the bank. Some people's not. Some people's success is, I work, I finish, and I spend the weekend with my kids, and it's finding your success. And that's why I always, when I haven't discovered, I'll say, your success is totally different to someone else's. If your success is selling one auction lot, and I remember speaking to a guy a couple of months back, and he been an estate agent, Ray, 40 years. I literally want to sell one house a month and the rest of the time play golf.
Amazing.
So I was like, brilliant. Would you be happy doing that? He said, yeah.
Amazing.
And I said, well, you've ticked the life box. If you can do that, you've done, isn't it? You're a success. That's the key.
That's what it's about. Being happy is the key, right? To your point, being happy is the key. I remember hearing from somebody who they openly admit, I will go and get work at, I think it was Asda. They'd go and get work at Asda for a set period of time, earn enough money, and then quit Asda and just live off that money for whatever time period that would cover. And so then they would then go back to work for another set period of time. So they wouldn't have a consistent job. And I remember hearing that and thinking, they've got it nailed because they're so clear on what they want and they know exactly how to go about doing it, and they're confident enough to be able to execute on that every single time. And I have nothing but absolute admiration and love for that, because that, for me, ticks all the boxes. You're clear on what you want, you know exactly what makes you happy, and you know how to go and get it, and you go and do it. That's what it's about, surely.
You can't beat that. You can't beat that person who's, and it's just that content, isn't it, of being happy. And I think everyone's finding it is different.
Completely.
And your happy's compared to my happy is different. And I think the key to, the thing is the key to happiness is taking the time out to reflect and going back into yourself to find out exactly what makes you happy.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, I went fishing with my little boy, my wife, yesterday. Now, this morning, taking him to nursery, I said, you can go in today and tell him you went fishing yesterday. He went, yeah, but we didn't catch nothing.
Don't tell them that. Yeah. Yeah.
But we didn't. But he was still happy to go in and go, went fishing, didn't catch nothing. The fish weren't hungry.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's that, isn't it? He was happy doing that.
Yeah.
He hasn't won, as you would say, but being in the process. And I think you'll probably agree. Having kids like that and seeing how they react to things. Sometimes it's totally crazy, and you're like, wow, it's only. Do you know what I mean? I've cut your sandwiches a circle, and I know I said it because it's fair, but I know the world's not going to end. But then when things happen to them and they go, oh,
Yeah.
and crack on,
Yeah.
you go, I think as adults, we need to sometimes look at it. It's like the other day, there was a spider, and my wife was like, oh my God, the size of that spider. And my little boy just walked up, picked it up,
I love that.
took it outside and flew
He
it.
can come around my house and get rid of ours if he wants.
Do you know what I mean? And anything bugs, anything like that, he'll do it. But then you look at it and go, because as a child, he's not scared of spiders.
Yep.
Because no one's telling him to be scared of spiders.
Exactly. His input is completely different to ours. We've had so much experience of there are no venomous spiders in the UK. So why are we so scared of spiders? We don't need to be scared of them because they're not going to bite us. They're not going to kill us. So what does any of it matter? None of it matters. And yet, for some reason, we still get caught up on it. I know that I've publicly kind of documented my son Leo. Obviously, when he was born, he needed a tracheostomy straight away. He had open heart surgery, which we knew that he would need. So I would argue he's had a tougher time in life medically than I've certainly had. But he, honestly, to go back to your point about what kids have as experience, what they do, what they don't do, he knows nothing about kind of how hard any of that was because he was so young. And equally, none of it seems to bother him. None of it. Like, I'm so impressed. Like, I say to him all the time, like, you inspire me, because he's not fussed by any of it. He just cracks on with life. Everything is fun, plays with his mates. Nobody treats him any differently. And I think, oh my word, the fact that he acts like that with everything that I perceive that he's got going on, and that's not going to be the end of it either. Like, he'll need another heart surgery and who knows how that goes, but he doesn't know anything about it. He just lives the moment as it is, which is the key to it, right? We said it earlier. There's only one time that exists, and that's now, the present. What happened in the past doesn't exist anymore because we always change it in our mind as to how it was or should have been. And the future doesn't exist because it's not played out. So it's only our perception of what it'll be like. Now is the only time that matters, which is why kids are great. They just see the now. They don't worry about, oh, in the future this might happen. It's just what's going on now. And they live that and they love that. And I think that's such an admirable place to be, like, to live in that moment. And we all hope that we're going to live till 80, 90, 120. None of it's guaranteed, none of it. And like, I've seen that firsthand with my son and being in Alderhay, in that firsthand. I'm like, that's given me the best perspective I could ever have. We talk about not wanting to change previous like hardships. I would never change, for me personally, what's gone on with my son Leo. Never. Like, really feel like I've had a 360 view of what life can be like. And I'm infinitely more grateful now. I've had a perspective that not many people get to have. And I'm very grateful. I obviously wish that none of it would have happened to him, but I don't change any of that. Like, I've benefited massively, which sounds very selfish, but you take what you can do, right? You would have had experiences, and you've been very candid about talking about some of them. That shaped you in a way. And I'm sure the positive lessons that you can pull from that have shaped who you are going forward in a way that I would never get to experience. So everybody, if they can use that time and space, it's all better for them.
And I think as well, because I've sat down sometimes and gone, because you've got to, sometimes you will go, why me? But then you've got to look at it and go, because maybe you're the only person that can cope with it. Do you know what I mean? Why has this happened to me, or what's this, or what? And you go, but maybe there's a sign of that's because you know you can cope with it. Some people can't, some people can, but it's kind of just getting that. Because I watch all your stories about your little boy.
That's very kind.
Do you know what I mean? All of them.
Thank you.
And he is inspiring because he's always kind of, you can see he's just being him. without the thought of why woe me, because he doesn't know no difference.
Nope. And my aim is for him to
He's like,
never
well,
care.
listen, me, yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm doing my thing.
Yeah. And he's adapted to it. Like he knows, like any kid can go to a soft play center, but we have to then worry about, like, is he going to get his trackie caught on one of the ropes, and then what happens? And what happens if he slides down something? He gets his little button in his stomach. What happens if that gets caught? And that used to be a real thing for me. Like, oh, I'd cringe all the time at anything he did. But he's dealt, like, you watch him, and as any kid would do, they just adapt. Like he knows how to climb off something. He knows how to climb on something. He knows where his limits are. It's incredible. Like kids are like, again, to your point, I think I needed to learn something from having a Leo in my life. Now, did it have to be Leo? I have no idea. And if I've caused any of it, then no, that's on me. But I feel like the lessons that I've learned from Leo, I needed to learn in so many different ways that I won't go into on here. But I obviously needed something from that. And I feel like I was the right person to deal with it because of stuff that I've seen and dealt with in the past. I feel like I was the right person. And again, it's what you share, isn't it? Like we could all stay silent on stuff and no one gets the benefit then. But again, shoot on an indirect to vendor again, like with our ability to be able to offer solutions that other people can't. People don't know it unless you say it out loud. People don't know it unless you can offer it up. Like we did IVF. No one spoke about IVF, or not many people spoke about IVF until we offered up, oh, we did IVF. Well, yeah, we did IVF. And then it all comes out.
Yeah.
Or my son's got a heart condition. Oh, yeah, my daughter's got a heart condition. This has happened with them. Yeah, they had their heart on the outside when they're born. Like all of a sudden it becomes more normal. But it's only when people start sharing things, and I get it, it's a vulnerability. Most people don't want to talk about it. And I understand all of that. I just believe if everybody is open about what they know, everybody can benefit and everybody can share and everybody can get further ahead and enjoy life more and be happier, which is like what we're talking about for me is the aim. Like, can we be happier? I think we can.
Yeah, because your social media will inspire someone who's going through the same or something similar to embrace the bit that you're embracing. Because it's like anything else, isn't it? If you're sitting there thinking, well, this has only happened to me, so it's harder to get out that woe me stage because it's only happened to me.
Yeah.
But when you look around and go, well, no, it's happened to. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, and so my mum passed away when I was younger. So then I watched me dad go through the process of losing my mum.
Yeah.
So then it's a weird thing because my dad's name was Ray. My name's Ray. Do you know what I mean? So then I went on to like Michelle passing away, but I had to look at my dad of how he handled it.
Yeah.
So if people don't talk about the situations they're going through, no one's ever going to learn. And then when someone's in that situation, it's like Sean said the other day, he said, as a kid, I used to love playing Monopoly. And the aim of Monopoly is to get as much money as possible. But then what happens at the end of the game? You put it all in the box. He said, realistically, life's the same. You go through life trying to get as much as possible. But then at the end of the game, you put it all, we go in the box.
Yeah. It's so true. There are very few things about business that aren't true in life, right? We speak about adversity and do we learn the lessons from others so that it makes it easier for us? You just spoke very candidly about your mum passing away and seeing your dad go through that, and then unfortunately you experiencing very, very similar. And had you not unfortunately witnessed your mum passing away and how that impacted family, you might have handled it all very, very differently. We just don't know. And that's the same as business, right? Like you take the licks in business, and if you choose to ignore them, then you're going to start from zero every time something happens. But can you actually build upon it and have either a shorter version of pain or a more positive version of pain or interpret it differently? It's just a constant learning, isn't it? It's the beauty of life. It's the constant learning that we get to do. It's just whether we want to put ourselves in that position to do it. And it's not, I'm by no means perfect at it. I'm far from perfect at it. But I think something you said earlier about it's just wanting to do it and being open to doing it, I think is the phrase that you used. If you're open to doing it, it will make things easier. And I completely advocate for that if we are open enough to do it. But again, we all have to go through our own process of grieving, pain, wondering, and then we get to the other side of it, and hopefully life's a lot better.
Yeah, it's about opening up, innit?
Yeah.
Are you going to be better yourself? Are you going to be in a better position yourself in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, if you go on the journey? And I think now as well, to be self-employed, it's a lot more talked about now, and a lot more people are compared. Because my dad was an entertainer. He was done a Frank Sinatra act, and he also done golf trick shots. At one point, he was like had a massive eagle eye. He was trying to be a ventriloquist or whatever it was. So he's a bit of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I got probably the entrepreneur bug from himself. But it's kind of, he was always trying to improve by looking. Do you know what I mean? Well, this I could do this, I could do that, or I can change. And it's kind. I always think about it because you always talk about letters on your Instagram stories and stuff like that. And it's like my dad used to always be changing his CD covers to make him a little bit better, or tweaking it
Yeah.
there and tweaking it there. And it's that, isn't it?
What's going to stand
The
out?
improvement.
Yeah. And again, that's reflecting on what you've done in the past and where you're at. And like, do I want it to be a bit different? Do I want a different outcome? We all know what we get if we carry on doing what we're doing. But the only way to get something different is by doing something different. Your dad's was changing his CD cover or putting a different bit of art on there or putting a note inside or whatever it is. Like, I love that. I love that element of it, which I think is just marketing, right? Like you said, when you created your business and it didn't go that well, you didn't know anything about marketing. And now you know very, very differently as to how to position yourself, brand, how to represent yourself. And it's that, isn't it? I think that in itself is a bit of a game. Like, how can I get somebody's attention? How can I appeal to something?
And I think as well, it's learning the process, isn't it? Because I think no matter what you are, if in business, if you can nail marketing and nail sales, that's the key. The rest will fall into place. If you concentrate on going, well, how's the best to market myself or my business? And how am I going to train myself to best pitch my business to someone? Because it's all about pitching, isn't it?
It is. We're always doing it. Everybody's doing it. Even when they say they're not doing it, everybody is trying to pitch themselves in one way or another, whether it's to a romantic partner, whether it's to I'm best for buying this car because you need a finance agreement, whether it's buying a house, whatever it is, we're always pitching ourselves. Always. People deny it, and that's on them, but we're always doing it. Always.
Have you tweaked your direct to vendor pitch from when you first started to now? So if you could put you Keith now, Keith then, would the pitch be totally different?
Completely. Then it was all about what I can do for them. And now it's not that whatsoever. It's the complete opposite of that. And that's only a recent change, truthfully. Now it's about what is it you need? How do you need help? To your point from earlier, no one asks people, how can I help you? Everything else is just about what can I get? What can I get? And that truthfully is how I started off. I assumed that people had a problem. And so I pitched kind of cold what my solution was. For most people, that will be about right? Because they're thinking about putting it on the market or they put it on the market and taking it off. So there is some truth to it being relevant. But now it's very heavy on what is it you need help with? What's your situation? What is causing you pain? Where does the pain need to be removed? And people are honest enough. Like, I'm humbled every time that somebody speaks to me openly about their position and what they need and why they're in that position. It's always private. I would never share that stuff. And then once I know that, then I can start to think, okay, so what would serve you best? It doesn't have to be a cash offer. It doesn't have to be completed in 5 days. It could be, is there a way that you can hold on to this house? Is there something else we can do with this? Do you need, I'm speaking to a guy at the moment. I'm not financially benefiting from any of this, by the way. There's a guy that contacted me and said, look, I want to hold on to my house, but I've got bad credit. I mean, I just said I wasn't going to share what people's situations are, but I'm sharing this only for the point of learning, right? He's got bad credit for a varying number of reasons. And I've said, I think you could probably still get lending. And so I've spoken to a broker around it, and the broker's going to try and help him find out, can you stay in the property and release money? Because his other solution was, I need to sell it and then I'm going to have to move out and I want to keep this house, which is a difficult spot to be in. So for me, because I asked him, what do you need help with? He then offered up what he actually needs help with. And so now I'm going to try and put the dots together. Do I benefit from it? In no way that I understand at the moment. Maybe later on down the line, maybe I do eventually buy it. I have no idea. Can I solve his problem now? And then what's the benefit to me in doing that? Well, I think it's the right thing to do because I've got the ability to help him and he doesn't at the moment. And then I guess secondarily, he might at one stage mention me to somebody else. That would be a second-hand bonus for me. But that's not why I'm doing it. It's because I asked him, first of all, what do you need help with? He told me, and I know how to help him. So I feel it's my right to do that. And he will be one of about, even if there was 100 people, right? He might be 5% of overall people that I help without benefiting in any other way. Everybody else will probably get an offer because that's what they're looking for. But for me, yeah, it's more centered around how can I help somebody first now, not here's my offer, enjoy that. Your process would have changed as well, right? How you pitch.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot what you just said is kind of you're looking at it when you first start out. It's about yourself, isn't it? What's like? What am I getting from it? Now it's more because I speak to loads of sellers a lot of the time where actually auction's not really right for them. Now, probably when you first start out, you're like, well, yeah, but I'll still pitch them the auction and get them on the auction.
Yeah.
Whereas now you're like, but or another thing, like I was speaking to a seller on Friday and she was like, I'm not too sure. And I said, being completely honest, I reckon you'll get an extra, potentially get more money open market. She was like, really? I was like, yeah, from someone who's going to live in it, who will buy it, you'll get more money, but it'll take longer. If you set a time frame of 6 to 12 months, there's a good chance you'll get more. I might try that first. And I said, yeah, I'll put you in touch with an agent. Try that first and see what happens.
Yeah.
We're probably, that'd have been a dead lead, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Years ago.
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily tell them that. You'd be like, no, like you'd ham it up too much in your favour. Like I remember the very opposite of this, right? Went to go and ask about a house, spoke to the neighbour. The neighbour said, do you buy houses? Yeah, I do, yeah. Oh, I'm looking at one. I'm looking at selling one. Fantastic. The benefit of speaking to a neighbour. He took me to the house. Great. He'd half renovated it. It wasn't great. And he said, what do you do? Do you offer kind of what national companies offer? And I said, what do they offer? And he said, about 80%. I was like, yeah, I mean, I might do. I went away and worked it out. And actually what I could offer him was 50% of it. And what I did at that time was I offered him that 50%. And he never wanted to speak to me again. And quite rightly, because that's an insult. Not only has he told me, not only has he invited me into his house, he's asked me what I'd offer him, and I gave him a rough guide. He's then taken that as gospel, that's what I'd offer. So he doesn't want to hear less than that. And then I've come back and just thought, I'm just going to offer you what I want to offer anyway. That's the rudest version of what I could possibly do. And I did that, and he didn't want to speak to me. And I get that entirely. And that was honestly, that was one of the key points of me realizing this can't continue, because there are other versions of this, right? To your point, somebody comes to you and says, Ray, I want to sell this. I don't think auction's right for you. Maybe look at on market. However, you're going to have to suffer the fact that you might get people that ghost you, endless viewings, blah, blah, blah. Kind of setting the stage for them. But you're telling them there's another choice and not pushing yourself into their mouth. I could have done that with this guy. I could have said to him, I can't offer you what you want. If you want to know what I can offer you, I'll tell you. But I suggest doing X, Y, or Z to sell it. But instead, I just went, enjoy that. That's in your mouth now. What does that taste like? It tastes like absolute shit. That's not the way to do it.
Yeah.
If he'd gone through one of the national companies and they dicked him over, he may well have come back to me at that point. But I didn't. I thought what I could offer was still the best pitch to make, and I lost out on everything at that point. And I learned so much from that. And there's another one up the road. I'd sent it a letter before. It's a derelict house. Somebody does live there because I saw them cutting their grass, and their son was there. And instead of me having a conversation with them about the location and how cool it is to live there, I just said to the son, think your dad would sell this at any stage? And he went, no. I was like, oh, okay. And every time I drive past that house, I cringe, because I'm like, what the F was I thinking? Who wants to be approached by any stranger and said, does your dad want to sell? No. Oh, okay. That's all very confrontational. None of that should take place. And again, those lessons that we talk about, massive lesson there. Whereas actually what I could have done differently was talk about the area, talk about the house, then started to weave it in. And if there'd been an opportunity to have a conversation, then there's a conversation. But it doesn't just have to be, I have to promote the auction house or I have to promote my business. Like, it's listening, isn't it? Very much like you said throughout the constant theme, listening first.
It's listening and having a picture. I used to do it is, I know you're probably going to say you're not looking to sell. I'm here as well, just to give you the option if you'd ever do down the line.
That's it.
Anything you need, or if you'd ever do consider selling. I spoke to a seller's son last week. They've been on the market for a year and a half. They got an offer the first week at way above $1 million. They're now down to offers over 800 grand. But in his mind, he said, my dad's still holding above $1 million. And I said, no, I understand that. And he said, it's hard to talk to him about he's going to get less. So as I said, well, I know you've come to us for a valuation, but technically I'd be far away from what you're on because you've been on at that price for 6 months and it's still not sold. But your dad's still holding on to the bigger figure.
That loss aversion. I don't want to lose that million, but you never had the million. And that's a difficult concept.
And I think it's a difficult one because, and that's why I always say, when estate agents give you a figure, sellers plan the rest of their life on that figure. So if you're overvaluing stock to get it on, you're going to come unstuck if you can't sell it, because you've got to have that difficult conversation. And the first thing any seller says, wow, I've lost 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand. And because we do get a lot of people who on the market come to us and say, like you probably do, and they'll go, yeah, well, I was on the market at 500,000, or I'll come on the market to start with 600 grand. And now you're telling me I'm at 500 grand and it's still not worth it, Keith. And you've offered me 300. That means I've lost £300,000, Keith. And you're like, no, because that 300 grand, that 600 grand was just an imaginary figure. And I said it to a lady a couple of months back. We can talk about the figure on the market that potentially you would get, or we can talk about the figure what you could get and spend. It's like me saying to you, do you want £1 million? Hey, and you can walk away with £1 million, or do you want to leave it and on Saturday there's a good chance you're going to get 5 million in this week's lottery. What would you rather have?
True.
What do you know what I mean? What would you take? What would majority of people take?
Yeah.
People go, well, I don't know about that, but it's that figure, isn't it?
I don't think
Because you must get a lot of sellers ringing you who are currently on the market.
completely. Yeah, and they've all got an expectation. It surprised me how many are open to discussing that's not a price that you can achieve. I thought I'd get shouted out of a room, every room, and I very rarely get told anything other than I understand, and I understand yours is a business, so I understand where you're at, but it's not going to work for me. So that's a more common conversation than get out, Keith, you're talking shite. But I don't think sellers, and understandably they don't understand, or I don't think they consider that sticking it on the market at a price has a lot of caveats to it. Your house is worth this price on the understanding that an agent thinks it's worth that. Now, do we know what the agent's like? No, but they're in a big shop, so therefore they must be reputable. Okay, so that's one tick in a box for there's a hurdle to get over. Then it's the market conditions have to be right. Then it's the right buyer has to be there. Then it's that mortgageability has to be right. All these things go on. I don't think people think about the 6 months it might take to sell, the uncertainty. So many vendors have contacted me at the moment. My house has been on the market, even if it's just 4 weeks. My house has been on the market 4 weeks and no interest, which is not a long period of time, right? And I need to move to Belize. That's where I need to move to. So they need a certain exit, but they're trying it on market and want certainty. Those two things don't go hand in hand. You get no certainty on the market because there are too many people involved. You've got a buyer who's going to be open to changing their mind. And I've had vendors contact me and said they were going to buy it, took me down the road, and then decided actually personally they want another house. That's a rough one. Other people that can't pass the mortgageability check, so then can't go through with it. That's a rough one. And it's a tough one to have as a conversation with vendors, but I think some vendors are now more open to that conversation. But I think at the first port of call, if they have to listen, if there's 3 options on the table and it's me as a private buyer, you as an auction house, and it's on the market, they're going to go on the market 9 times out of 10 because they believe that's the right route for them because it's got the biggest number. But they're not thinking about the time frame, the uncertainty, the messing around, and the lack of freedom they get as a result. And I understand that, but they don't. And it makes it a really tough conversation to have. But again, like I say, more and more people are more receptive to that now because they're getting dicked around too much.
100%. Our group had the Estate Access Summit, and Simon Gates was there, and he was talking about figures of like the percentage. If you don't get interest when it goes live in the first week, I think it went up to something like there's a 50-60% chance you're going to take it off the market. I'll get the figures off them. The figures were absolutely shocking.
That's outstanding.
On if you don't get interest within the first couple of weeks. Well, if you look at it this way, we do a monthly auction. I listed a property last week, and I remember being to Joe within 24 hours. Didn't get much interest. And I remember speaking to Joe saying, but ought to get more than that. She went, right, it's 24 hours. And like, yeah, but that's one day gone. We've only got 30 left till the auction. But if you can imagine, when you list the property on Rightmove, all the alerts go out, don't they? Everyone. And it's like, if you don't secure, it was some of the figures, like if you don't secure a sale within a certain period of time, which was very short, the likelihood of it not completing went up to like 50%. Because if you can imagine it now, think of it from a buyer's perspective. If I listed my house today and you really wanted to buy it and you've seen it in the first week and you secured it, right? You don't want to not buy that house. You've secured that property, haven't you? Before everyone else. Oh, I've got it. Oh, I've got it. Now, if you've seen it on the market for 4 to 6 weeks and then you then secure it, do you stop looking? And that's a question to every buyer, because I know, like, me mates who've bought houses, and I remember seeing one and he was still flicking through Rightmove. And I said, I thought you bought something. He said, oh, yeah, it's going through legals. So why are you looking? Just in case. Just in case what? Well, in case anything else comes on, that's better. But that's because the property's been on the market for a longer period of time. Because everyone wants what everyone else wants.
Of course. It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. And again, I don't think buyers or sellers even are educated in that, and nor would they be, because you're going to sell what, 2-3 houses in your lifetime, maybe. And that's, so you don't have to get into the weeds with it, but knowing that stuff surely would alter people's mind on how they're going to promote their property and where they're going to promote it. Because surely if you want certainty, on the market is never going to get you that. I know that everybody wants, out of the value triangle, certainty, speed, and most amount of money. People are always going to point at the most amount of money. Like, I want to make the most amount of profit out of a deal. Of course, you want to make the most amount. I get it. We all do. But realistically, we understand that there's other variables involved that maybe have an impact on that. So I will take less money if there's a certain exit for it. And I think most buyers will think, oh, I'll stick it on the open market and just see what I get from it. And if they don't get the bites, then they get frustrated, which doesn't make much sense to me, but I get it. They've kind of got it in their head. There's a guy called Mo Gawdat, I think it is, who used to work for Google X, who is now a happiness expert. And he said, expectation kills happiness because we expect something to happen. So we've already put our own little emotion into it, even though it's not based on reality. So people's expectation when they put something on the market, I would imagine, is I'm going to get loads of interest because my house is great. I've lived here for 20 years. Look at the refurb I've done. Brilliant. The agent said it's great. And then it gets no interest. Now, all of a sudden, they're very angry about it, which isn't fair on the agent, but also they want to sell their house. It's like, well, where do you go from there? Then they start to look at options like yourself, like myself, for, well, I want certainty, but I also still want the most amount of money. But those two things can't exist. Maybe they can, maybe, but often they can't. You're going to have to give up something. And that's the difficult conversation. And if they knew the stats that you've just talked about, if you don't get a bite within a certain amount of time, you're probably going to delist it. If agents knew that, because surely agents can't be happy with that, right? I'm winning business,
No,
great, but I'm going to be
I
able to
think
sell it. Well, that makes no fucking sense.
the shock was, even in the room, everyone was like,
I
wow,
didn't know that.
that's like, yeah. Because everyone, because I think in the UK, everyone realizes and everyone thinks, well, it takes ages and there's always a problem. So I sold like my house last year and I knew exactly what price we were putting it on for. I knew exactly what price we were going to accept. A couple of estate agents and you said they'd always you could put it on for another 20 grand. And I was like, I know, yeah, you probably could, but there's no point. Let's just be realistic.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Let's get it on. And it's that, isn't it? But I think a lot of the time, a lot of questions don't get asked
Exactly.
on the valuation of what the end goal is.
Yep.
And I always start my conversation when I'm speaking to any seller is, okay, if I had a magic wand, what would happen?
Yep.
Most sellers will go, well, I want the most money and I want this. No, but let's just magic wand it.
Yeah.
And if you ask the seller that, a lot of the time they'll go, well, I need to do this, or I want to buy that, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. You're asking the questions. They're telling you what your job's going to be.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, my job is, okay, then I can get you to that point. My job's, no, I can't. And that's what you do, isn't it? It's like me coming to you and saying, Keith, I need to sell my house. I don't really want to put it on the open market because it's a bit run down, but I need 200 grand. And you go, I get that, right? But to have it not go on the open market, no viewings, no surveys, there's your 3 boxes out of the 4 tick.
That's it.
But the 200 grand, I'm never going to be able to tick that box.
Spot on. It's asking. It's the art of asking questions, isn't it? I know you're really good at asking questions, and a lot of that comes from listening. Because we could all have the same list of questions in front of us, but unless you listen to them to know what they want, the questions aren't really going to line up with getting the best result. But if you can ask the right questions up front, leave it and listen, then you can start to ask the right questions to direct it in the way that's actually going to get them a result. But again, I don't know. I just feel like most people aren't aware of what they want from a sale of a property, and I feel like a lot of people don't really have the seller's best interests at heart, if that makes any sense. And I know that maybe sounds very biased on my part, but I feel like if you're selling something, you just want to know what your options are. And then you can make an educated decision. Like, we're all adults, we can all make educated decisions. Surely if they've got the knowledge, and you can sway it whichever way you want if you really choose to do that, but surely if they've got the knowledge, then they can just make a decision and then they have to live with that decision. Whereas I feel like if you just go straight with an agent, and of course I'm biased in this, of course I am. If you go straight with an agent, you're going for the maximum amount of marketing, understandably, but you're also probably going to go for the longest time frames, the most amount of dicking about. And is it really going to get you what you want? And based on what I'm hearing right now, no, it's not. It's not working for a lot of people. And most people aren't being told. Some are, which is credit to the agent, but most people aren't being told it is a sticky point in the market. Probably going to have to wait till the end of this year to sell it on the market for the price that you want. People aren't being told that. They're just being left in limbo, and worse still, with no communication. And I know I'm only hearing one side of it. I've not spoken to the agents around this, so I may be being unfair with that, but I feel like there's a real gap at the moment.
I think as well, I remember getting told, this was years ago, from someone, an estate agent, and it was to do with who's the best agent to pick in your local area. This was a tip, and he said you can have free valuations done by free valuers who will give you their honest opinion and pitch that business. But predominantly, unless you're like a self-employed estate agent, predominantly the valuer doesn't sell it. So he said, so would it be better suited, Ray, to go in? Because this was when I was valuing. He said, is it better for me to you to pitch me this business now, your business and this estate agent brand you work for, and for me to list my house with you because I like you and I like how you've pitched in and I like what you've said price wise. Are you selling it? Or is it the people in the office that are going to sell it? So is it better for me to go into 3 offices and ask for what I'm going to be selling and see how they treat me as a buyer? And it's always stuck with me that
That's great. That.
because I always thought, yeah, you're right. Because he said, so you're telling me how good the back offices and the people in the office, the negotiators and all this, but technically that's just you. So I've bought into you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how good you really are because I'm going to go into the 3 estate agents that I've had out and see if when I walk in and say, I'm looking to buy a 3-bed semi-detached, I want it in this price range, to see what they do. Do they show me any? Do they book me any viewings? If they don't book me viewings that day, do they contact me down the line? Do they contact me tomorrow? Do they ring me? And that's who I'll pick the estate agents who I want to sell my house with.
It's so true, isn't it? And that goes full circle, right? Because it's a human business. It's absolutely a human business. There's no chatbot involved in it. It's somebody giving you their personality and how they come across. And obviously there's going to be a sales pitch in there from somebody, but that's been quite a lot of feedback that I've been getting recently is I just want to speak to a person. Like, I don't want to speak to a major company where you're not going to have the same point of contact or you're going to be somewhere else. Like, no, I want to speak to the person that I see, which is, again, for you in the auction company, I see your face an awful lot on social media for the auction company. You're the first person I think of when I think of auctions, which is obviously to do with your branding, marketing, but you're a person at the end of it. And that's the key bit. And again, I think that gets lost too often. Like, in the course of trying to get something agreed, people forget it's still a human business. Like, people need to feel comfortable. You still need to trust the person they're speaking to. And if you, however that trust is formulated, whether it's by showing them evidence of something or whether it's consistent action, you've got to choose kind of how you're doing it. But it's a human business.
Has your business scaled quicker due to your social media, do you think?
It did do for a while. Yeah, it probably has actually. Yeah. Yeah. The growth of the business, yeah, definitely coincided with the growth of social media for me. Yeah. But then I've kind of taken a bit of a different route now because vendors aren't contacting me off the strength of social media. I think very few of them know about my social media. It's probably a good thing because they don't want to be seeing memes every day. I think it's more about me as a person now and them seeing me or hearing about me or being contacted by me. That's where it then comes from. There's definitely something to be said for social media. You know the strength of it as much as I do. You use yours really, really well. But vendors have never once referenced it. Never.
Or have they referenced it? Because I've always said you can pretend, you can say what you do, but until people see what you do, it's hard to get across what you do.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Whereas if, do you know what I mean? Keith buys houses, but actually does he? He sent me a letter. Do you know what I mean? But does he actually buy them houses?
That's really interesting.
Or is he going to buy the house?
Yeah, that's really.
Do you know what I mean? Then the first thing some people will do will go, let's Google, does Keith buy houses?
I've been asked a few times recently, in fact, in July, I've been asked recently about, are you buying this or are you a sourcing agent? Several people have asked, am I a sourcing
Yeah.
agent? And one person even referenced, are you going to be buying this or are you just a young sourcing agent who's going to be trying to get the business? I'm like, interesting. That's the perception they've got of sourcing agents. And also they want somebody that they're speaking to be the buyer. And I've always been upfront with people. Again, it's no surprise. I've been very upfront with people and said, look, so I viewed one in Eccles fairly recently. And they said to me, do you like it? Do you want to buy it? Because that's what people, it's really vulnerable, isn't it? When you're doing off market, people are inviting you into their home and it is almost like they're presenting something really personal to them, something they've had a lot of memories in, and they're going, do you want it? Like, is it, or am I going to be rejected on this? And I'll always say to people, like, I'm interested in it, but I just have to figure out my numbers and where that would come in. And I say to people, like, if I can't buy it, if it doesn't work for me, I will try and find a buyer that I would trust to put you in contact with. That I would only put you in contact with somebody that I believe would want to buy it. And then I'll start to sound people out privately about, where does this work for you? Does it work? How does it work? But to the first point, they want you to buy it. They don't want you to be a mysterious third man. Again, there's another vendor who owns one next door to one of ours, and he contacted me because it was kind of fortuitous, but eventually he contacted me and said, I do want to sell it actually. So that's a good point that we've got in contact. But I don't want to be messed around and have multiple buyers. I want you buying it. And I don't think he's saying you personally because I like you so much, Keith, you're great. He's saying, I just want to know who I'm selling it to. And that's a really important point, isn't it? They need to know, which again, social media, you as the face of the auction company is so important, because people are going, I know Ray. Will Ray turn up on a doorstep? Maybe. Will it be Ray I speak to on the phone? Maybe. But at least I know what Ray looks like, and he's a person. He's not AI. He's not just a brand. He is a person behind it, and I can get into that. I can believe in a person. And again, to go back to it, you and I can have the exact same message, but we will come across differently. I'm a big believer in your local accent will help you locally, but equally, my local accent, my southern accent might help me in different ways. And I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. It is the dynamic of it all. But to the main point, it's a human business, and you know this better than anybody. It's all about human, right?
I've always said it's the properties are the second part really. It's a people business, isn't it? It's not. And I think if you focus on the property, and I think when I first started, it was you did focus on the property. What's this? Do you know what I mean? You're looking at the property rather than spending the time talking with the person of who's the selling property, because then that's the key of where one, what's the best solution for them? Two, what their goals are and what can be achieved and whether you can achieve it. And I think if you focus on the person, you'll get a better result every time.
Our business has worked a lot better once I've started focusing on the people, not anything else. Once I've started looking at how can I solve their problem and the person, rather than what can I give you and the house, business has been so much more fluid, like in a really good way. There's no more grinding. It doesn't feel like it's going uphill. It feels like it's flying now, which is amazing. Listen, I'm 42. You would have thought I would have known this stuff before, but I definitely went off track with it for a while. But the people part of it and not the house is the thing that matters. Houses are largely the same, aren't they? There's going to be little variances, but it's the person behind the house that is the thing that matters. What's their story?
Well, what's their story? And it was prime example, as you said before, where that person who you'd offered on got offered more, but still wanted to go with you. Now that's because he trusted you and going, well, yeah, potentially I could get more, but do you know what? I trust Keith. I'm happy with what he's offered. I'm willing to go with him because I know that's the right thing. So that's a people business, isn't it? Because if it was just about money, you could just, anyone who comes to you, you could just fire a figure out and just crack on into the next day.
Definitely. But then it works both ways, right? Because I know of people who have wanted to sell something and have refused to sell it to a developer, even if they can offer more. They refuse to sell it to a developer. They only want to sell it to another family. And that's the emotion behind it of, I want a family to live here, which is, which I do understand. I think it's naive from a monetary standpoint, but that's not the most important thing. We've spoken at length about it. It's not the most important thing. But it shows that people still have their own barometer on what is important to them. It's only in a few cases, in fairness, but in a few cases, it's, I will not ever sell to a developer. I only want it to go to a family, because that is the most important thing for them. In which case, I'm never going to get a look in unless they really think that myself, my wife, and my son are the best story in the world, or they think that actually I really like kind of the human that Ray is, and actually he might get me something that's in between, like it might go to a family buy at auction. But there's definitely something with that as well.
I've had it in the past where someone said, I need you to like, the only people who can bid on this, Ray, is families.
Really?
And I went, yeah. I went, I can't determine who's going to register to bid. I can't ring up a bidder who's registered and go, are you a family? No, you can't bid. So it doesn't work like that. I said, I understand the logistics of it. But then, to be fair, I have sold a property before an auction on the basis of, and it did have bidders on it who were investors. And this family come to us before and said, I don't really want to bid on the day. Here's my offer. Could you put it to the seller?
Nice.
And the seller said, okay, what's the position? And I said, they're going to live in it. And I just said, listen, the others are investors. Predominantly, they'll probably pay a bit more. Yeah. But it's up to you. And she said, no, I'll sell it to this family before the auction.
So the tip for anybody who is a family and wants to buy a house at auction is to put it forward beforehand, because then your story stands out, which I think is.
Yeah. If it's because you're right in what you say. This family were like, I don't want someone ready to come in and rip it all out and start again. And I said, I know, but unfortunately you can't control the narrative of when someone buys it and what they do with it. That's their choice. The only way to do that would be to basically sell on the open market and tell everyone that it has to be an owner occupier. But even then, it's never gonna work.
You're never going to know, are you?
So you just got to, do you know what I mean? I understand the logistics of it, but then, the family who bought it, they didn't want to compete with the investors.
I understand that entirely.
And I said, well, you've got the edge because you're going to buy it to live in it. And to be fair, I said, so if I was you, I'd put a pre-auction offer forward, put your presentation to me in an email of why, and I'll put it to the seller. And I forward the email onto the seller, and the seller said, yeah, I'll accept that.
Amazing.
I'd rather sell it to someone like that. But then that's also, as you said before, it's learning about that individual person. Because if I'd just looked at it as a property and gone, which is a property, it doesn't make a difference who we sell it to. Who we sell it to is irrelevant to who we sell it to. As long as we sell it, as long as we sell it for the best price possible, then I've done my job. But technically, if I'd have sold it to an investor, I wouldn't really have done my job.
No.
Because the seller would have got more, but she wouldn't have been happy as a seller.
She wouldn't have got her wishes. And I know of people before, a vendor whose house I can see in my mind now, I'd sent him a letter and he contacted me and said, are you buying this for yourself or are you a developer? Now, that's a really loaded question, isn't it? Because instantly in your head, it was for me for a while. I was trying to work out the maths really quickly. Like, right, how's this come across so far? What if I say this? What if I phrase it like this? And I've never lied about what I do. I've always said, I'm a developer, I'm an investor, I'd be buying it for a business. And the reason I've always done that is because I never want anyone to go, you told me, and now actually it comes out you're an investor. Like that, I think that wouldn't feel good for me. It might feel fine for other people, but not for me. And this particular person said, so are you a developer or are you a family? And so I did the maths in my head and I was like, no, I'd be buying it for myself for the business. He's like, okay. Because somebody had contacted me before and said they're buying it for their family. And then it turns out they were an investor and I never want to be contacted like that again. I was like, okay, that reinforces what I believe, which is honesty is the most important thing, and how it can be perceived if you mislead with your language. Because I'm not denying the person that sent it would have been a family and maybe they were thinking it could be for us to live in, but also probably it's an investment. Like it's definitely confirmation bias for me that saying up front you're an investor is the right thing to do. But equally, I know people that won't and will just say, oh, I'm a family buyer. It's like, okay, are you? But I understand people want to get the deals done, but I don't want to do it at any cost. Very much like you. It's a business, but at the same point, there are ways of doing it, and you've chosen your route, which is I want to connect the seller with the right buyer for them rather than try and make the most amount of money and piss off the seller. Sorry, that's not the way to do it. But again, everybody's got their own version of it, haven't they? Some people probably have had very much success saying it's going to be a family home and then flipped it and then never have to worry about it. But I'm conscious of not burning bridges. I've done enough of that in my time. I don't want to keep burning bridges. Honesty is the best policy.
If you're honest, at least you know you've gone, well, you can take the day off.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
I mean, you've ticked the day off and go, well, because we get it quite a bit. You'd be surprised at how many people say, yeah, but a developer, Ray, he's going to rip it out and start again. I said, yeah, but he's the only buyer. He is physically the only buyer to buy it. He will buy it, refurbish it, sell it on to someone who's predominantly going to live in it as a family. But we're not going to get them family buyers buying it in its current condition. So you're in a rock and a hard place. It's unmortgageable. So it needs to be a cash buyer. Predominantly, I'd say majority of cash buyers are developers.
In an ideal
So
world,
what do you want to do?
yeah, in an ideal world, you would have a family that have saved up money and can move into it. That's not always going to be available.
So it's kind of the best. What's the best of the situation? Carry on as you are, and eventually, potentially, probably not. Someone will come along with a pot of money and go, "I want to buy it and I want to live in it," or do you sell it now and invest it? Because I do get asked a lot. To be fair, when we're talking auction prices on properties that need refurbishment, is well, how much is the developer going to make? And I'm like, depends. There's so many variables you just don't know. But realistically, don't worry about what they're going to make. Let's just focus on what you're going to get first, and that you're happy with that figure.
People will always do that, though, won't they? There was a vendor that I had before who said, I know that you can make more off of this if you do it up. And I'm like, yeah, but I'd be taking on the risk and the cost of it. And he's like, no, I wouldn't want to sell it then. That makes no sense. You're now choosing for somebody else not to benefit because you wouldn't benefit in the same way by putting in none of the same effort. Makes no sense to me. But I get it. Everybody, if it's their house, they get to do what they want with it, right?
And that's the key. So I had a load of questions, to be fair, but we just talked anyway. We'll end with this because this is a cracker. If someone's trying to break in to direct to vendor but feels overwhelmed, what's your one nugget of advice?
That's a really hard question. Why would you do that? What's my one bit of advice? I would want to know what specifically is overwhelming them, truthfully, but I appreciate that's not the answer you wanted.
Okay, great. Today is your first day doing direct to vendor. Never done it before, but obviously you've got the experience you've had now. What would you do today to start the process?
So the sales part of me would say the direct do the direct to vendor training that I put together, right? I don't know if you were setting me up for that. That's what I would say. If that is not an option, or they've done that training, let's say they've done that training for the sake of my ego, they've done that training, and now they're like, right, what do I do? I would adopt the mindset of have fun with it. Absolutely, I would make sure having fun with it is the first port of call, because I think people make it too serious. But the first thing that I would do is I would just go out for a set period of time and I would look for empty houses. And it's just one step at a time after that. Once you find an empty house, you could do one of two things. You can write down the address and go home and send it a letter, or you can just start making inquiries there and then. I would do my direct to vendor training, then I'd adopt the mindset of have fun with it, and then I would just go out and look for empty houses and then post a letter or ask a neighbor, one of those two things. Most people will choose the former because it's less personal and less kind of scary. But I've said this on social media so many times. I promise people it is not what you think it is. Like, people are not going to rip your head off. No one's going to be mad at you. Like, people want their problem solved, and that is what you are, as a problem solver. What would you tell people if somebody came to you and said, Ray, I know you've been doing direct to vendor for a long time. Where do I start with this? Obviously, you'd say go to Keith's direct to vendor training, and then what would you say?
And do Keith's direct to vendor training. You never know. After this conversation, I may be able to get a discount code or something and put it on the social media.
Absolutely.
Get a discount code for like something like auction one or something. Leave it with us and we'll come back to that one. But me personally is trying. There is a website, isn't it, where you can find out how many empty property, not the addresses, but there's a website where you go on and it tells you how many in the area. I'll put a link on one of the guarantee because I've seen it. So go on that website, find how many empty properties via the council, because that's what they get all the database from. How many empty properties in your area currently now that are long-term empty properties, and then start building your database of empty properties. And so you know exactly what you've got to, because a lot of people go, oh, I don't know how many there is. There is a website, I can't remember, off the top of my head, I can't remember what it's called. It's like Empty Homes UK. They have a spreadsheet where it tells you from the council how many empty properties are currently sitting there now.
And they're only
Yeah.
the ones that they know about as well. They're only ones that they have like increased tax on. That's without all the ones that have just become empty. They don't know anything about. They've given up on. Like, that's why the figures are like over 1 million, but aren't officially over 1 million. We can only report the official council ones. We can't report hundreds of thousands that are empty that they know nothing about. But yeah, you're completely right.
And then there's your target, and then go out hunting and tick every one off. So at least that's what I'd do. Get on the ground, get your 10,000 steps in a day, walking. Do you know what I mean? Get driving, doing anything. But build your database of empty properties and then see how many you've got by the end of the week.
Just give me 1 second, because on my social media, I've pinned it as well. There is a stat, which if I was more efficient, I would know off the top of my head. So in the northwest of England, relevant for both of us, there are 104,000 empty properties, which equates to, oh, hang on, that doesn't equate to it. On the direct to vendor train, I've actually broken it down into how many that equates to in the whole of the UK, because I've got the numbers at the time, how many that is in the whole of the UK, and then how many that is per city or town. And it's like there's 1,000 per town or something like that, 1,000 per city. If anybody says there's not any empty houses, they're lying. Like, there's loads. And you're right, it's compile a database, start to work through it, because you don't have to buy all of them. And let's be real, you're not going to buy all of them. But you can certainly monetize them in different ways, whether it's a referral to the auction company, or whether it's to an estate agent, or you find a private buyer for it and you source it on. But there's other stuff. You don't have to have Scrooge McDuck's millions. You can literally find a monetizable way for all of it.
So there's the golden nuggets of direct to vendor. Well, seeing you're not in the Gavel Drops studio, I can do it myself. But that was a great episode. And today's Gavel Drops episode is with Keith Firmin, the direct to vendor king. So there will be, Keith just said it, Keith said he'll give us a discount code or something so we can put on his direct to vendor course. We'll sort that out. But that's Keith's Gavel Drops episode completed.